Chapter 528. Yeah, it's time to play seriously with you. Along with Shuehe's vicious and cold smile, the blood-sealing shield suddenly became extremely restless. The light patterns on the shield flickered and blossomed with a beautiful luster. Immediately after, the blood-sealing shield suddenly exploded from within and immediately transformed into hundreds of identical flying shields. The killing intent that filled the sky covered the sky and spread in all directions. In the next second, under the watchful eyes of the crowd, the hundreds of blood-sealing shields quickly combined together, with their sharp ends facing outwards, forming a huge inverted triangle. The huge inverted triangle was like an overturned pyramid. Its sharp end was aimed at Chu Hen, and it released an extremely powerful killing intent towards Chu Hen, who was in front of it. The rolling thunder was deafening. The sky changed color, and the wind and clouds moved. Feeling the aura emitted by Blood Prince Shuehe, everyone on the frightening sword peaks square below revealed a shocked expression. No one had expected that the blood-sealing shield, which was ranked 6th on the spiritual weapon ranking, would actually have such a powerful killing move. Chu Hen, Luo Mengshang's beautiful eyes focused as her red lips moved slightly, and she muttered softly. Shilan lightly patted her shoulder, shook her head, and said, "Don't worry, you'll be fine." Facing such a shocking killing move from Shuehe, Chu Hen's handsome eyebrows slightly furrowed, and his eyes faintly revealed some seriousness. Although he had just witnessed the battle between Blood Prince and young Master Yuan, Shuehe still had a hidden trump card that he had yet to display. Facing such an opponent, he could not take it lightly no matter what. Holding the limitless tooth saber diagonally, Chu Hen was accompanied by a chi-chi sound of restlessness as the power of dark lightning climbed up the sharp blade like vines. The lightning surged and extended, and it was extremely imposing. Looking from afar, it was as if Chu Hen was holding a lightning pillar with an imposing aura in his hand. Immediately after, the mysterious patterns on the limitless tooth saber began to distort, and the fong-like tool pattern emitted wisps of light gray light. An extremely berserk power was released from the inside of the limitless fong. The ice-cold aura was like smoke and mist, soaring into the sky like a tornado. Immediately, Chu Hen waved his hand. Xiao! The black saber in his hand that was entwined with the endless power of dark lightning instantly left his hand. It shot out with surging flames and dense light, clashing head-on with the unparalleled giant blood shield pyramid. Rumble! The black saber that cut across the sky was like a divine weapon. Thunder patterns crisscrossed, and its power was shocking. Countless wild black thunderbolts hovered around the limitless fong and quickly turned into a ferocious beast head. The head of this ferocious beast looked like both a dragon and a flood dragon. It opened its huge mouth and spat out the murderous limitless fong with the momentum of spitting out the sky. Boom! In an instant, the huge inverted triangular blood shield pyramid collided head-on with a black saber that emitted a monstrous aura. A terrifyingly violent energy shock wave shook heaven and earth. It was like a collision between mountains and meteorites. The chaotic energy covered the sky and scattered everywhere. However, in the next moment, the limitless tooth pierced through the clouds and broke the dozen or so blood shields that formed the tip of the blood shield pyramid into pieces. Then, like a firework shower, the hundreds of blood shields were scattered, broken, and shattered layer by layer. What? The people from the various sects and families were all shocked. The black saber in Chu Hen's hand could actually contend with the blood shield? Even Shilan was slightly stunned. She was well aware that the limitless fong was only ranked 19th on the spiritual weapon ranking, while the blood-sealing shield was ranked 6th. The gap between the two was huge. Logically speaking, the limitless fong was absolutely unable to block the attack of the blood-sealing shield. Who knew that when they were in the forest of Mount Mang, with the help of the demon Tuoba Sha, the limitless fong's power had greatly increased with the sacrificial refining technique. After the sacrificial refining, the limitless fong could already be ranked in the top 5 of the spirit weapon ranking list. In comparison, it was of a higher grade than the blood-sealing shield. The remnant energy continued to impact the peaks of the Sky Sword Pavilion. Some of the peaks that did not have any defensive formation set up were destroyed by the scattered energy. Yu Sha, the Azure Sect's enforcement elder, could not help but narrow his eyes. He muttered in a low voice, "This boy is indeed not a simple person." After he finished speaking, he glanced at Duan Qingshan, the Grand Elder of the Thousand Crane sect. At this moment, Duan Qingshan's face was filled with praise and excitement. It was obvious the Thousand Crane sect would not let go of a good seedling like Chu Hen no matter what. Similarly, the Azure sect would not let go of Chu Hen no matter what. Handsome? Ha! Mu Feng laughed proudly. I knew this fellow is here to win the championship. Chu Hen, it's time to see your performance. Many people were excited when they heard this. To be honest, the battle between young Master Yuan and young Master Shui was not particularly enjoyable. It was especially regrettable that young Master Yu, the leader of the four young masters, was not able to participate in this year's Sword Classic. However, right now, Chu Hen had appeared out of nowhere. This caused everyone present to have quite a bit of anticipation. In recent years, there were very few people who could shake the position of the four young masters. Chu Hen's appearance was undoubtedly a pleasant surprise. Of course, there were even more people who showed indifference towards Chu Hen. The people from Grand Cloud City, in particular, hoped that he would kill Chu Hen on the spot. One was Mu Hongzhou, and the other was Mu Yifeng. The two great treasures that had made a name for themselves in Taishao City had both been destroyed by Chu Hen. The former had obtained 10 consecutive victories, but he was not able to participate in the finals. The latter had wanted to kill Luo Mengchong, but his arm was destroyed by Chu Hen. One had to admit he was really unlucky. The light and shadows of the blood-sealing shield danced and splashed in the sky. The chaotic cold air was filled with a strong, murderous aura. Shui's face was slightly gloomy. The veins on his forehead bulged, and the blood vessels on his arms bulged. The rising blood mist outside his body began to thicken. At this moment, the sky suddenly darkened. The light was instantly covered, and darkness shrouded the sky. Wah! Wah! Along with a piercing noise, a flock of blood-red crows suddenly appeared in the sky. Hundreds and thousands of crows appeared out of thin air and flew in all directions around Shui. At the same time, everyone noticed that the eyes on Chu Hen's face had unknowingly turned a demonic purple. The sky was dark, and the red moon hung in the sky. The blood crows danced wildly, and it looked both real and illusory. The scene in front of him had happened not too long ago. Is this the technique that Xiao Ruan Man cast just now? I don't know, but it's a little similar. Both of them. Everyone looked at the illusory rain sex Huanju, Xiao Ruan Man, in confusion. The latter only watched the battle quietly, and there seemed to be a hint of anticipation in her bright eyes. Shui Qi's expression was slightly strange. He muttered softly, "Don't get hit. It'll hurt." "Huh, you're using illusions again? You don't have any more moves? Where's that purple flame of yours? Why aren't you taking it out?" Shui sneered disdainfully. The corner of Chu Hen's mouth curled up slightly, and his handsome face looked somewhat evil. "You have to use different moves to deal with different people. With your ability, you're only worthy of making me use normal moves." Arrogant. Oomph. With that, Chu Hen's eyelids lifted, and his pair of demonic eyes once again burst out with a brilliant brilliance. An invisible and powerful pressure swept out in all directions. In an instant, the red crows flying in the sky immediately became enraged. They shot out like auroras, charging towards Shui, who was in the center of the area. Raging winds howled, and 1,000 birds cried. Blood Noble's eyes darkened, and he roared angrily, "Don't be too pleased with yourself. Otherwise, I'll make you die a horrible death, buzz buzz." Subsequently, the hundreds of blood-sealing shields that were scattered in all directions became active once again. They swiftly combined together, forming a dazzling and resplendent square shield that protected Shui from all directions. At the same time, The illusions that Chu Hen had unleashed reached him. What surprised everyone was that the red crows flickered with dazzling light patterns as they moved, and all of them turned into cross-flying swords. The cross-flying swords rotated rapidly like a windmill, and with a spiraling force, they tore through the air and fiercely collided with the shield formed by the blood-sealing shields. Bang! Bang! The first strike shook, the second strike split, and the third strike formed a hole. Just a few hundred cross-shaped flying swords were enough to shatter the blood-sealing shield into smithereens. The densely packed fragments of light and shadow exploded unceasingly. Once the defensive shield was broken, the cross-flying swords that were formed by the blood crows attacked Shui. He like a myriad of swords returning to their origin. What? Shui's pupils constricted tightly, and his eyes that reflected the cross-flying swords that filled the sky were filled with panic. Hiss! Chi! Blood rained down, and the cross-flying swords streaked across Shui's body. His skin and flesh were lacerated, his tendons and flesh were severed, and his bones were glaring. The scene that appeared on strange young Master Chui, Chi previously appeared on Blood, Noble Shui. However, every single person present could clearly feel that compared to Xiao Ruan Man's move, Chu Hen's move was even more skillful, sharper, and even more gorgeous and spectacular. Shui seemed to have become a target, and countless cross-flying swords continuously minced his body. Although this was only an illusion, the intense pain was incomparably real. The endless pain caused Shui's entire body to tremble, and a low and deep roar came from his throat. What a fucking spectacular sight. I thought that he secretly learned this move from Xiao Ruan Man. No. It was Xiao Ruan Man who learned it from Chu Hen. Countless people below could not help but tremble with fear as they looked at Shui, who was covered in blood and did not have a single piece of uninjured flesh. On the other hand, the Heavenly Sword Pavilion's master Mu Xiongcai, the Thousand Crane Sect's Grand Elder Duan Qingshan, the Azure Sect's Law Enforcement Elder Yu Sha, and a few other provinces' important figures stared deeply at the pair of strange purple eyes on Chu Hen's face. They seemed to be thinking about something, and doubt flashed across their brows from time to time. The purgatory-like torture constantly attacked Shui's spirit and will. On the other hand, Chu Hen was like a king who controlled the power of life and death, judging the life and death of his opponent. At this moment, a furious roar erupted from Shui's mouth. Then a monstrous, bloody, and murderous aura surged out like a tsunami. A red incantation rune quickly appeared on his forehead. His veins bulged up like a horned dragon. Under everyone's shocked gaze, the countless cross-shaped flying swords that were charging at Shui, were shattered by a circle of red airwave. Subsequently, Shui's body rapidly expanded and was covered in indestructible armor. Sharp spikes and scorpion legs grew out of his body. Chapter 529. Rumble. The hurricane roared angrily, and a murderous, intense soared to the sky. An endless evil aura spread out from the body of the gigantic ghost scorpion monster. The entire sky above the frightening sword peak was enveloped in a surging evil aura. The expressions of the people below changed again and again. They were all secretly shocked. If they had not seen it with their own eyes, no one would have thought that Chu Hen, who was only at the 4th level of the void-piercing realm, would be able to force the blood-young Master Shui, who was at the peak of the 5th level, to such an extent, if it was said that the illusion technique displayed by Xiao Ruan Man amazed everyone. Then when Chu Hen used it, it shocked everyone present. This illusion technique directly caused Shui to release the Berserk Curse and complete the Berserk state. In just the blink of an eye, Shui had once again transformed into an incomparably ferocious and terrifying giant scorpion monster. His entire body was covered in indestructible armor, and his sharp scorpion legs danced wildly like steel blades. A tail that was like a dragon bone danced up and down like a python, flickering with an extremely dangerous aura and powerful penetrative lethality. The giant scorpion monster spat out a sharp roar. A pair of blood-red bell-like eyes glared angrily at Chu Hen, who was high up in the sky. A voice filled with endless anger exploded above everyone's head. Hee, illusion technique. In the end, it's still an illusion technique. However, that kind of pain is really exciting. Ha ha. The fierce momentum was especially crazy and irritable. His aura suddenly rose, and his murderous intent rose. The pain you just inflicted on this young master's body, I will return it to you 1,000 times over. Rumble. As the voice fell, the sky stirred up a surging dark red blood light that soared into the sky. The blood-red light was like a tide, like an ocean. It was like two separate currents, one on the left and one on the right. Then they merged together as if they were drawing a prison. They formed a huge circle that was hundreds of feet wide, trapping Chu Hen in the middle. All kinds of powerful and piercingly cold pressure crushed towards Chu Hen. Immediately after, above the giant scorpion monster that Shui had transformed into, the boiling dark red fog wantonly surged, and then two red beams of light shot out. What's that? The expressions of everyone present turned grim. As they focused their attention and looked over, the thick red fog rapidly took shape, following which it transformed into a huge, illusory figure. The illusory figure was like a monster, with a sinister and ruthless aura that soared to the sky. The two red beams of light were the eyes of the illusory figure. Ghost Scorpion Shin Body. This is the real Ghost Scorpion Shin Body. An excited shout came from the Azura Sex team. Shui is no longer holding back. The battle is about to end. I didn't expect young Master Shui to be this strong. Looks like young Master, you made the right choice by not coming. Sensing Shui's powerful aura that was constantly rising, the hearts of countless people below could not help but tremble. Young Master Yuan. Wu Yuan shook his head lightly and muttered softly, "It's too difficult. This fellow is truly a monster." Chui Chi muttered to himself, "The Berserk Curse is indeed powerful, but..." Huan Jushao Ruo Man raised her eyebrows slightly. Her eyes filled with anticipation as she stared at the young figure in the middle of the Berserk energy. Buzz! With Chu Hen as the center, the blood-colored halo around him, along with the powerful aura that shook the heavens and the earth, became more and more concentrated. The space was distorted, and the chaotic light patterns intersected wantonly. In the next instant, nearly 100 blood-colored light rays shot into the sky from the halo of light. They were like iron chains that crossed a river, trapping Chu Hen within. Everyone's expression changed. Looking over, they saw that the nearly 100 light beams were the indestructible venomous scorpion stingers that were like dragon bones. Every bone spike was abnormally sharp, and a dark green light lingered around it. The venomous scorpion stingers that filled the sky extended endlessly, piercing through the wind and clouds, sweeping up a dense, murderous aura as they all attacked Chu Hen, who was in the middle. This is not an illusion. The crazy and impassioned voice was abnormally ear-piercing. Shui's attack was more than 10 times stronger than the move that Chu Hen had just displayed. The shocking scene impacted everyone's vision. This scene was like a scene of nearly 100 giant ghost scorpion monsters lurking in the thick fog, swinging their stingers at the same time to launch an attack. The speed of the attack was extremely fast. Beams of light and shadows traversed the sky, making it impossible for Chu Hen to dodge. In this situation, even if Chu Hen was hit by a single stinger, it would be very dangerous. Luo Mengchong, Shilan, and the others could not help but clench their fists, their eyes filled with a strong sense of solemnity and worry. Boom! Bang! It was comparable to the collapse of a mountain or the confrontation of a tsunami. In front of everyone's trembling eyes, the sky suddenly turned a rich scarlet color. All the stingers of the dragon-bone venomous scorpion collided with each other in an instant, causing the sky to shake violently. What happened to Chu Hen? Was he dead or alive? The vast and mighty red light intertwined and danced, almost causing the space to shatter. Almost everyone's heart was in their throats, their eyes fixed on the place where Chu Hen had disappeared. Could it be that he had been smashed into pieces by the impact of such a violent force? But in just the blink of an eye, thousands of rays of holy golden light seemed to penetrate the clouds and blossom from within. Countless people's hearts immediately trembled. Bang! There was an earth-shattering sound, and a bright light pattern exploded in the void. An extremely powerful aura filled the sky and the earth, and the holy light sprinkled over the various peaks of the heavenly sword pavilion. What? He's actually unharmed? The holy light shone like a divine sun. Everyone's eyes were filled with deep astonishment. They saw that Chu Hen was standing proudly in the void, unscathed. His entire body seemed to be covered in a ball of golden divine flames. Two pairs of illusory and faintly discernible golden light wings unfolded behind his back, and on the forehead of Chu Hen's determined face, a pattern of golden flaming clouds suddenly appeared. Heavenly Spirit Sigil. It's the Heavenly Spirit Sigil. Hua! After the trembling exclamations, the entire place was in an uproar. The four cardinal sigil that Shi Fengzi had developed back then had all appeared in the Sword Codex Grand Mi today. Luo Mengchang's clone sigil, Xiao Ruan Man's transformation sigil, Shuehe's berserk sigil, and the heavenly spirit sigil that Chu Hen had obtained. Even though the Four Directions curse seal had been revealed once again after more than 10 years, and many people already knew about it, but now that they had personally witnessed the scene of the berserk curse seal and the Spirit Heaven Curse seal, it caused the blood of most people to boil. F***CK, that's awesome. Today, I've finally seen the true appearance of the Heavenly Spirit Sigil. What ability does the Heavenly Spirit Sigil have? It's very powerful. The Berserk Sigil allows the caster to raise their strength, speed, defense, and aura for a short period of time to complete the Berserk state and stimulate the potential of the human body. The Heavenly Spirit Sigil, on the other hand, allows the caster to raise the strength of the true origin energy in the body for a certain period of time. That's right. The Berserk Sigil causes the brute force to go berserk, while the Heavenly Spirit Sigil causes the true origin energy to go berserk. Most importantly, during this period of time, the Heavenly Spirit Sigil can continuously supply the true origin energy. In other words, within a short period of time, Chu Hen's true origin energy is almost limitless. He doesn't have to worry about the consumption at all. What AF Asterisk King monster! As soon as the Heavenly Spirit Sigil appeared, everyone was extremely envious of Chu Hen. The leaders of the various sects and forces stood up from their seats and stared at the chaotic scene in the sky. This fellow, Ai Lan, the Azura sect's core disciple, cursed coldly. The battle between the two continued to escalate. At this moment, nobody dared to say who would have the last laugh. It's fun. Mu Feng had a smile on his face as he crossed his arms in front of his chest. He had a smug expression as if he had already expected it. However, at this moment, Mu Feng felt a strange gaze directed at him. Mu Feng looked over and saw that the person who was looking at him was none other than the Heavenly Sword Pavilion's pavilion master and his own father, Mu Xiongxai. Mu Xiongxai's eyes were deep and sharp. Mu Feng naturally knew what the other party meant. The message that Mu Xiongxai sent was very simple. As long as Mu Feng accepted the ball of sword demon power in the sword ancestor sculpture and activated the bloodline boundary of the sword demon Shin body, with Mu Xiongxai personally teaching him the great pagoda devil art, Mu Feng's future achievements would definitely not be weaker than the two people in the sky. The evolved sword demon Shin body could contend against the saint body. With this, Mu Feng's future cultivation would be able to intimidate the entire province. However, this was only Mu Xiongxai's thoughts. The grudge between father and son had reached this point. It was impossible for Mu Feng to follow the path that Mu Xiongxai had set for him. Mu Feng snorted disdainfully and did not look at Mu Xiongxai again. His attention returned to the sky. Buzz, buzz. The gorgeous golden brilliance lingered around Chu Hen's body, as if it was burning with a scorching flame. Looking from afar, Chu Hen seemed to be in a golden fireball with his four wings spread out. He was like a celestial general that had descended to the mortal world. It's my turn, blood noble, A frivolous arc slowly rose from the corner of his mouth. The true essence in Chu Hen's body was like boiling water that had been ignited in an instant, completely erupting. Chu Hen crossed his 10 fingers, and each of his fingers was gathering restless energy fluctuations. Glass-like pure, golden spiritual energy flowed and gathered. In an instant, Chu Hen's palms became crystal clear, as if they had been soaked in the radiance of the sun. The extremely restless energy caused the area within a radius of 10,000 meters to become very restless. The airflow danced and shook the surroundings. Shui, who had transformed into a giant scorpion monster, laughed sinisterly. His laughter was filled with sinister viciousness. People who are too full of themselves will not have a good ending. Kiki, the rolling blood mist, rushed towards Chu Hen with an earth-shattering momentum. The sinister giant shadow that was floating above Shui, he swept up a monstrous aura and pounced over. The endless cold current caused one's lips and teeth to tremble and a chill to run down one's spine. The giant dark red shadow was like an evil monster that had rushed out from the depths of hell. It enveloped the entire sky and covered the sun. At the same time, Chu Hen's body emitted a holy radiance. He leaped and swept to an even higher altitude. His entire body was surrounded by spiritual patterns, and he looked like the divine fire of the sun that was suspended between heaven and earth. Chu Hen's eyes turned cold. He pushed his palms down and shouted in a deep voice, "Heavenly Spirit Strike." Chapter 530. Heavenly Spirit Strike. Chu Hen's gaze was piercingly cold like a blade, flickering with an ice-cold chill. His crossed palms flipped outwards and pushed downward from above. In an instant, the resplendent golden spirit runes surrounding his body blossomed like the sun, erupting with boundless holy light. Buzz! Space violently trembled as an incomparably vigorous golden pillar of light shot out from between Chu Hen's hands, which flickered with golden splendor. The sky changed color, the wind blew, and the clouds surged. An especially terrifying aura shook the entire area, causing the sky to violently tremble. Everyone's pupils involuntarily shrank. Many astonishment appeared on their faces. The golden pillar of light was so solid that it seemed to be solid. Its surface was covered in layers of flowing ripples, and the unstoppable aura displayed the might that could penetrate through the heavens and earth. Bang! A deafening, sky-shaking tremor exploded in the sky. The gorgeous and resplendent golden pillar of light was like the divine light of the sun as it directly struck the enormous dark red, illusory figure. The entire sky immediately rumbled and swayed uneasily. Deafening roars of thunder crisscrossed as light runes surged and pressed downwards. Immediately after, under countless gazes that were filled with shock, the terrifying pillar of light released by Chu Hen forcefully pierced through the enormous eerie figure. It was as if the chilling air was being crushed by the fierce sun. The majestic scene was like the divine light of dawn breaking through the thick layers of clouds. The heavenly spirit strike was like a hot knife through butter. In the blink of an eye, the enormous eerie figure that was as large as a mountain was astonishingly pierced through on the spot. What? Everyone turned pale with fright, especially those from the Azura sect, who revealed expressions of terror. Bang! With a loud bang, the enormous figure exploded into tens of thousands of clouds, and disorderly light runes scattered like rain. The majestic golden pillar of light pierced through the sky, shaking everything in all directions. After piercing through the enormous ghost figure, it once again attacked the blood-young Master Shui, he in the area below, without slowing down. Bang! The ferocity of the attack caused the blood-young Master, who had transformed into a giant ghost scorpion, to be unable to dodge. The extremely destructive light pillar solidly struck the abdomen of the giant scorpion, and along with an especially heavy explosion, cracks began to spread out. The area of the giant scorpion's abdomen, which was dozens of meters in diameter, forcefully caved in. Ah! An angry and pained roar came from the ferocious beak. A murderous aura surged, and a bloody mist surged. All sorts of raging flames soared into the sky. "Bastard, I'm going to kill you." However, just at this moment, the four wings on Chu Hen's back moved. The spirit inscriptions between his eyebrows flickered, and his entire body emitted flowing lights. His figure flashed, and he pierced through the air, landing firmly on young Noble Shue's back. "You can end it now," Chu Hen coldly barked. Shortly after, he spread open his arms, and two lightning runes flickered in his eyes. Sizzle. Thousands of dark lightning bolts surged out from Chu Hen's body like black vines. Subsequently, they extended out endlessly. Like a tidal wave, they blotted out the sun and engulfed the heavenly river. Lightning, 10,000 caddies, boom! The storm was coming, and the mountain was about to collapse. The dark thunder shook the sky and shook the firmament. Along with Chu Hen's angry roar, thunder rumbled from all directions. Thousands of lightning tribulations all fell down. Densely packed like a group of lightning dragons, they fiercely attacked young Noble Shue's body. The continuous heavy explosions set off waves in the sky above the nine heavens. Endless destructive aura filled the sky. The sharp monster's roar caused one's scalp to go numb. Everyone's eyes were wide open. Each and every one of them were so shocked that their faces turned pale. The huge ghost scorpion monster's body was covered with black lightning runes. The crisscrossing lightning runes were like a huge net that enveloped the opponent. Restless lightning snakes swam around young Noble Shue's body. Every inch was filled with an extremely strong impact force. Mournful screams resounded. Under the gaze of tens of thousands of people, the sturdy armor of the huge ghost scorpion cracked open. Inch by inch, it broke apart. Following that, the ghost scorpion's aura rapidly weakened. The people from the various sects were all dumbfounded. Even the Heavenly Sword Pavilion's master Mu Xiongkai could not help but stand up from his seat. His dignified face had a slight change in expression. The powerful dark thunder impact continuously attacked Shuehe. The latter's body shrank rapidly and quickly returned to its normal size. However, young Noble Shue, who had reappeared in front of the crowd, was covered in blood. His clothes were ragged, and his body was covered with wounds that were so deep that the bones could be seen. He looked exceptionally ferocious and terrifying. "I will not lose." Shuehe's body was trembling. His handsome face was distorted with anger. He was the famous young Noble Shue, the #1 genius of the Shura sect. Just a moment ago, he had crushed his nemesis, young Noble Yuan, with a thunderous momentum. His purpose of coming here was to win the championship of the Sword Code Grand Meeting. Then he would go to the Moon Abyss City to find young Noble Yuja and take the title of the top of the four young masters. He could not lose. He absolutely could not lose. He had not defeated Song Yujie. How could he stop here? Shuehe's eyes were scarlet red. He was extremely uneasy. However, the moment the power of the Berserk Curse was defeated by Chu Hen, his defeat was determined. Stubborn and unrepentant. There was a trace of disdain in Chu Hen's light and provocative tone. Then he punched out, and the powerful power of the stars completely erupted from his entire arm. An enormous fist flew out of his hand, and like a meteor, it pierced through the sky and smashed towards Shuehe's head. Opening Sun Fist. Shuehe's pupils shrank to the size of a needle. Faced with this unstoppable attack, his face was filled with panic and fear. Boom! The impact, which was comparable to a meteorite, poured out. The shocking fist force smashed Shuehe down from the sky and landed in the middle of the square of the frightening Sword Peak. The mountains trembled and the earth shook. Everyone's feet trembled unceasingly. Wild and violent energy spread across the square. Even though the defensive formation was circulated to its limit, the extremely powerful remnant ripples still swept in all directions. The stone bricks on the ground were crushed into powder. Countless cracks spread rapidly. The crowd hurriedly operated their true inner force to resist. Even so, many people were still shaken by the fierce impact. Their bodies were numb, and their blood surged. Oh my God! It's over! It's over? The entire heavenly sword pavilion had sunk into silence. Only one figure was left in the sky. Holy light lingered around him. His four wings were like shadows. He was young and sharp, like the stars in the sky. The dust that filled the air gradually dispersed. The first thing that appeared in the crowd's line of sight was a huge pit. In the pit that was piled up with rubble, a miserable figure lay there like a dead dog. Looking at the figure that was almost crippled, the crowd's pupils shrank again and again. Their hearts trembled again and again. Chapter 5:31. A silent atmosphere quietly spread across the square of the frightening sword peak. The dust that drifted freely in the air was like the hearts of everyone, and it was impossible to calm down. As they gazed at the miserable figure covered in blood that lay within the enormous hole at the center of the square, countless people in the surroundings gulped, and a strand of terror arose in their hearts. He lost. The renowned blood young master Shui. He had actually lost just like that. The scene before their eyes was so real that it was slightly dazzling. High up in the sky, Chu Hen, who was covered in golden markings, was like a dazzling, resplendent, and imposing aura that dominated the surroundings. Mu Feng had a complacent and sly smile on his face, as if he'd picked up a treasure. My position as the champion has been secured. Yin Hanlu glanced at Shui with disdain and said, "You don't really want Chu Hen to lose to you on purpose, right? What's wrong with that? Chu Hen and I are brothers made of iron, so he wouldn't care about such a trivial matter." TCH, what a hypocrite. Mu Feng puckered his lips and paid no further attention to Yin Hanlu. He just shouted loudly, "Who else? Who else? Those who want to challenge Chu Hen should hurry up." After that, a wave of restlessness swept through the surroundings. The members of the various sects and powers from Lunar Dragon City and Great Sky City had cold expressions on their faces. Especially the members of the Azura sect. Their gazes were gloomy and icy cold like swords. Damnable little animal. The enforcement elder of the Azura sect, Yu Sha, shouted fiercely in a low voice. Just an inconspicuous Chu Hen had spoiled their plans over and over again in the forest of Mount Mang. If the situation wasn't special, Yu Sha would have attacked and killed Chu Hen without the slightest hesitation. On the other hand, the members of the Thousand Cranes sect were slightly excited. The eyes of the Grand Elder, Duan Qingshan, narrowed slightly, and he was even more determined to bring Chu Hen back to the Thousand Cranes sect. Who else? Chu Hen gazed at the crowd below with eyes that were like stars and emanated an awe-inspiring aura. Who else? Who else could it be? The formless, domineering aura of youth crushed everyone present. Young Master Yi was defeated, Young Master Yuan was defeated, and Young Master Shui had bumped into an iron plate. It was undeniable that the spectacle of the battle was indeed shocking. At this moment, it seemed like only Huan Zhu and Xiao Ruoman were left. However, Xiao Ruoman was still standing on the spot. The corners of her mouth curled up into a bright and beautiful smile. "You win, congratulations." Hua, Xiao Ruoman's decision was made in a few simple words. What followed was a loud clamor. Luo Mengchong and Xilan looked at each other, and then ran forward in surprise. Mu Feng applauded with all his might. All the sects and forces present were discussing with each other. The head of the Heavenly Sword Pavilion, Mu Xiongkai, also stood up and nodded with a smile. Chu Hen flew down and landed steadily on the ground. His divine radiance vanished, and the fiery cloud-like rune between his eyebrows also disappeared. "Are you injured?" Luo Mengchong asked softly. Her slender eyebrows were filled with worry. After the fierce battle, Chu Hen's face was slightly pale, but his eyes were still very bright. He smiled and shook his head, indicating that he was fine. He was a handsome young man with high spirits. Mu Yifeng, Mu Hongzhou, Shurisex Tuyi, and the rest of the group looked at Chu Hen with a sinister light in their eyes. At this moment, Cui Qi, Wu Yuan, Xiao Ruoman, Jian Aonan, Song Yuanjia, and many other geniuses were reduced to foils. Their brilliance was completely overshadowed by Chu Hen. "Ha ha, how exciting! Duan Qingshan applauded and said loudly, "Pavilion Master Mu, I think we can announce the result now." Everyone's gaze fell on Mu Xiongkai. Under the majestic statue of the sword ancestor, Mu Xiongkai raised his arms slightly, displaying the demeanor of a sword master. He looked at the crowd in front of him and smiled lightly. The sword law grand meet has ended. I don't really want to say goodbye to everyone so soon." Boom! Before he finished speaking, an ear-piercing sound of thunder suddenly exploded in the sky in front of him. The sudden and terrifying sound caused the ground under everyone's feet to shake violently. Everyone's expression changed. What was going on? Then, a powerful aura suddenly swept across the sky like a surging tide. What was that? The monstrous aura was filled with a majestic smell of blood. A blood-colored great wave stirred up the sky, and with the momentum of a tornado, it crushed everything in its way. In the face of such a boundless might, the people from the various sects were all shocked. Mu Xiongkai, I'm afraid you'll have to say goodbye to this world today." The cold voice was filled with endless arrogance and overbearingness. The strong wind blew, causing the airflow between heaven and earth to become abnormally chaotic. Everyone from the Shura sect raised their eyebrows and revealed a look of surprise. Mu Xiongkai clenched his fists, and his squinted eyes revealed a trace of seriousness. His throat moved slightly, and he coldly spat out 2 words. "Refinement puppet." Refinement puppet? The leader of the Shura sect? As soon as he said that, the already restless, frightening sword peak was in an uproar. The various sects instantly revealed a strong sense of surprise. Those who came did not come with good intentions, and those who came with good intentions did not come. The other party's sudden appearance was definitely not a passerby, especially the sentence, "I'm afraid you will have to say goodbye to this world today." It was filled with malicious intent. Boom! In the blink of an eye, the huge, blood-colored light of the Great Way had already arrived in front of everyone. A man with a blood-red aura flashed out from the blood mist. This was a middle-aged man who looked to be about the same age as Mu Xiongkai, but the aura he gave off was completely different. Mu Xiongkai gave off a dignified and heroic feeling. On the other hand, Refinement Puppet was ruthless, cold-blooded, and cruel, causing people to fear him. Sect leader. The people from the Shura sect shouted, their voices filled with sincere respect. Similarly, the people from the various sects stared at the person in front of them with fear. The person with the highest authority in the Shura sect was also a frightening person in the entire province. He was cold and bloodthirsty, and to the countless people present, the person in front of them was definitely extremely dangerous. I didn't know that sect leader Refinement Puppet would be coming. Please forgive me for not going out to welcome you. Mu Xiongkai's demeanor was still the same, and he did not show any weakness in the face of the other party's mountain-like aura. The auras of the two of them formed an invisible collision in the air, and the layers of airflow caused the blood of the surrounding people to become restless. Chu Hen, who was standing with Luo Mingshang, Shilan, and the others, frowned slightly as he stared cautiously at the unshakable figure in the sky. Meanwhile, Mu Feng, who was not far away, had an especially ugly expression. Chapter 532. I didn't know that sect leader Lien Mo would grace us with his presence. I apologize for not welcoming you earlier. Mu Xiongkai's eyes were piercingly cold as he stared at Lien Mo, the Azura sect leader. Lien Mo's sudden visit had caused the atmosphere in the Heavenly Sword Pavilion to become extremely restless. In front of this overlord of a province, everyone was more or less fearful and respectful. Lien Mo hovered in the air, giving off the feeling that he was an insurmountable mountain. He first coldly shot a glance at the reckless blood Prince Shui He, before turning his indifferent gaze and landing on Chu Hen's body. Buzz, a formless wave of air, seemed to ripple between heaven and earth. When Chu Hen met Lien Mo's gaze, he felt his mind tremble as if his soul had been attacked, and he instantly felt the aura of death. It was hard to imagine that a mere gaze could make one unable to move. So powerful. Was this the strength of a profound world-stage powerhouse? Chu Hen clenched his fists as the power of his demon eye bloodline quietly circulated. Traces of purple light spread out from his body like vines. Immediately, his aura, which had been suppressed to its lowest point, stabilized slightly. A hint of surprise flashed across Lien Kuo's eyes, followed by a fleeting coldness. His gaze returned to Mu Xiongcai, and he said with a frivolous sneer, "Two more old fellows, stop hiding, come out, what?" Everyone was shocked. As soon as he finished speaking, a powerful aura that was not weaker than Lien Mo's surged over from the south and north sides of the frightening Sword Peak. In the south, there was a heavy layer of dark clouds that surged like the sea. The recklessly surging clouds were like a demonic fog that covered the sky. It was so vast that it seemed as if it could devour the heavens. "I, Flying Snow Palace, am here." His voice was like thunder, causing one's blood to surge. Flying Snow Palace? It's the sect leader of the otherworldly spirit sect. Why is he here as well? If that's the case, could the other person be? Almost at the same time, the sky in the north suddenly distorted. Tens of thousands of distorted halos soared into the sky, and light patterns of various colors intertwined wantonly, forming a strange, dreamlike space. "I, Helian Zhong, am here." Powerful auras filled the air in a crushing manner. With the appearance of the experts from the three parties, not many people on the frightening Sword Peak were able to stand stably. The powerful airflow stirred in all directions. Everyone was shocked again and again, and their expressions changed again and again. As expected, even the sect master of the illusory rain sect, Helian Zhong, has come. What's going on? Why would the three of them appear at this time? Has the Sword Cannon Grand Meet ended? I don't know. Those who come have bad intentions, and those with good intentions don't come. I'm afraid the Heavenly Sword Pavilion will be in trouble today. The Azura sect's Lien Xiao, the otherworldly spirit sect's Flying Snow Palace, the illusory rain sect's Helian Zhong, and the Celestial Sword Pavilion's Mu Xiongcai. This was the first time in the past decade that the overlords of the four factions had a direct confrontation. However, under such circumstances, the atmosphere was indescribably heavy and strange. Chu Hen quietly held Luo Mengchang's lily-white hand and led her back a few steps. He was very clear that what was going to happen next was not something that he could participate in. The best choice was to wait and see and act according to circumstances. "Grand Elder, what should we do?" Wu Yuan of the Thousand Cranes sect asked Duan Qingshan in a low voice. Duan Qingshan's white brows were tightly knitted together as he replied in a low voice, "Let's wait and see." On the other side, the various factions and clans of Taishao City and Moonlight City were also watching from the sidelines. In the blink of an eye, the silence of the frightening Sword Peak was a little frightening. Lien Xiao, you're quite early." The one who spoke was the sect master of the otherworldly spirit sect, Flying Snow Palace. He didn't look very old, and he was dressed in a luxurious white robe. Although his hair was already white, his skin was especially fair, and not the slightest wrinkle could be seen on his skin. Lien Zhao's eyes turned cold as he replied coldly, "I knew that you two old bastards would come as well. However, I, Lien Xiao, will make it clear today. If anyone wants to compete with me, I'll kill them." Sect Master Lien Xiao sure is imposing. "If you want to monopolize it, that won't do," Helian Zhong, the sect master of the illusory rain sect, said indifferently with a smile. Helian Zhong was extraordinarily handsome, and he looked to be the youngest of the four. Especially his eyes, which were enchanting and evil, giving off a feeling that it was difficult to see through them. "The three of you, it's been many years since we last met. Why have you suddenly come to visit today?" Even in such a situation, Mu Xiongcai's expression did not change, and he remained calm. Lien Xiao sneered and replied with disdain, "Mu Xiongcai, why are you pretending to be ignorant? If you don't want the Heavenly Sword Pavilion to be destroyed, you know what to do. Otherwise, I'll definitely make your Heavenly Sword Pavilion run in rivers of blood today." Undisguised, murderous intent spread out from his body. The expressions of the Heavenly Sword Pavilion people changed, and they all drew their swords, surrounding the statue of the sword ancestor and protecting Mu Xiongtsai in the center. If you want to behave atrociously in my heavenly sword pavilion, I, Jin Aonan, will be the first to not allow it. Sword Absolute, Sword Aonan tightly gripped the treasured sword in his hand, and he glared angrily at Lien Xiao. Umph, an ant-like thing dares to be impudent in front of me. Lien Xiao shouted in disdain. All of you back down. Mu Xiongtsai raised his arms, indicating for the people on both sides to back down. Then Mu Xiongtsai raised his eyelids slightly and said calmly, I know why you're here, and you also know my choice. Make your move. Make your move. Everyone couldn't help but clench their fists, and their faces were filled with shock. In this huge province, only Mu Xiongtsai had such courage. Lien Xiao, Flying Snow Palace, and Helian Zhong looked at each other, and the latter said, Pavilion Master Mu, being too stubborn isn't a good thing. Your heavenly sword pavilion has occupied the Great Pagoda Demon, Slaying Technique, and Buddha Demon Sword for close to 1,000 years. Shouldn't you return them to us today? The moment these words came out, the crowd couldn't help but let out a low uproar. Buddha Demon Sword and Great Pagoda Demon Slaying Technique? This was the purpose of Lien Xiao and the other two. Everyone knew about the Buddha Demon Sword. It was the treasure of the Heavenly Sword Pavilion, and it was passed down by the first sword ancestor. However, only a small portion of people knew about the Great Pagoda Demon Slaying Technique. You're dreaming. A high-ranking elder of the Heavenly Sword Pavilion shouted, The Buddha Demon Sword and the Great Pagoda Demon Slaying Technique are the treasures of our sect, and you outsiders want to get a share? Simply wishful thinking. That's right, please get out of my Heavenly Sword Pavilion immediately. Otherwise, our Heavenly Sword Pavilion is not to be trifled with. The people of the Heavenly Sword Pavilion were enraged, and their sword auras soared into the sky, causing the air to tremble. Lien Xiao was still sneering disdainfully, and he looked down at Mu Xiongtsai from above. His eyes suddenly became extremely sharp, like a thin needle, flickering with a strange red glow. Chapter 533. Mu Xiongtsai, do you still have the ability to protect those two items now? The cold laughter was mixed with disdain and sarcasm. Mu Xiongtsai's pupils constricted. This was the first time his expression had changed. The words of the Azura sect's sect master, Lien Jin, caused many people to be confused. The Sword of Buddha and the Great Pagoda Demon Technique. The three leaders of the Azura sect, Otherworldly Spirit sect, and Illusory Rain sect had come personally for these two items. It was easy to imagine how attractive it was to be able to tempt these three people. However, why did they only choose to make a move today? Could it be that the Heavenly Sword Pavilion had weakened its external defenses because of the Sword Codex gathering? Even so, the Heavenly Sword Pavilion was not to be trifled with. In the past few hundred years, there had been many opportunities like this. Why did it have to be today? Clearly, something must have happened to the Heavenly Sword Pavilion, which had attracted these three fierce tigers. At this moment, Mu Feng, who was not far away from Chu Hen, had a complicated expression on his face. Even though he was the young master of the Heavenly Sword Pavilion, under such circumstances, Mu Feng's presence was extremely weak. He suddenly recalled the words that Mu Xiongtsai had said to him under the Sword Ancestor statue that night. I hope that you can inherit my mantle and take over the position of the Heavenly Sword Pavilion Master. From today onwards, I will personally train you. Once you awaken the Sword Demon Shin body, you will be able to fight against the Sacred Body. In the words, I made a mistake when I was cultivating the last level of the Great Pagoda Demon Technique. The words that Mu Xiongtsai had said in a calm tone reverberated in Mu Feng's mind. It was like a sudden clap of thunder, causing him to feel extremely uneasy. Mu Feng did not know what mistake Mu Xiongtsai was referring to, nor did he know what the consequences would be. There were many problems that he could not understand, and unforeseen events had occurred one after another. At this moment, Mu Feng was actually a little afraid. It was an indescribable fear and anxiety. Even so, with his ability, he could only quietly watch from the side. Everyone's gaze was focused on Mu Xiongcai. The hint of surprise in the latter's eyes disappeared and was replaced by a faint coldness. Humph! Mu Xiongcai smiled indifferently and said, I don't know what gives you the confidence to come to my heavenly sword pavilion to steal our sect treasure. However, I will say this first. If anyone wants to experience my heaven-shocking demon sword, feel free to come forward. Buzz. Even the space faintly trembled, and a powerful sword aura that was as vast as a mountain was released from Mu Xiongcai's body. A sharp aura spread out, and with Mu Xiongcai as the center, a neat and deep spiral sword pattern quickly spread under his feet. Everyone on the frightening Sword Peak Square felt a strong pressure, and their faces turned pale. Lien Zhao's expression changed slightly, and he sneered. Mu Xiongcai, you have to think this through. Since we're here, we won't go back empty-handed. Both Flying Snow Palace and Helian Zhong squinted their eyes. They were not frightened by Mu Xiongcai. What, do you want to steal it openly? An elder of the Heavenly Sword Pavilion mocked. This old man has forgotten that you people are all shameless bandits. How dare you? You're full of nonsense. Azura Sect's enforcement elder, Yu Sha scolded. I'm talking nonsense? What a joke. Who here doesn't know that you people coveted the 7-star soul pearl of the Seven Souls Nation? When you failed to obtain it, you destroyed an entire nation. If this isn't the behavior of bandits, then what is? The elder from the Heavenly Sword Pavilion was filled with righteous indignation. His eyes were red with anger as he pointed at the Azura Sect, the otherworldly spirit sect, and the illusory rain sect. Humph, I didn't expect you to be so unrepentant. Today, you even dare to covet our Heavenly Sword Pavilion. Aren't you afraid of being laughed at by the world? The moment these words were spoken, the entire square could not help but burst into a low uproar. Due to the fact that the various sects had fought for the 7-star soul pearls of the Seven Souls Nation, the reputation of the Azura Sect, the otherworldly spirit sect, and the other sect had indeed been tainted. However, due to the strength of these sects, the others did not dare to voice their anger. Now that the past was brought up again, the atmosphere became tense again. Haha. Lien Kwa, the sect leader of Azura Sect, smiled coldly. He pointed at Mu Xiongcai and said, Mu Xiongcai, you people really dare to spout nonsense. Let me ask you, do the Buddha Devil Sword and the Great Pagoda Devil Technique really belong to your clan? Mu Xiongcai replied coldly, Humph, if it's not ours, then it's yours. How ridiculous! How ridiculous! Back then, the ancestor of your Heavenly Sword Pavilion and the first ancestor of my sect entered the ancient desolate heaven domain together. It was agreed that the 4 of them would split the treasures equally. However, the sword ancestor that all of you praised was a despicable person who kept the treasures to himself. We're here today to take back what belongs to us, Lien Kwa said in a deep voice. The entire place was in an uproar again. Everyone was whispering to each other as they discussed among themselves. Ancient desolate heaven domain? Chu Han was slightly stunned. He had a puzzled expression on his face. What was this place? It was not only Chu Han, but it was also the first time everyone present had heard of the ancient desolate heaven domain. From the conversation between the 4 of them, it was obvious that the ancestors of the Heavenly Sword Pavilion, Azura Sect, Illusory Rain Sect, and Otherworldly Spirit Sect had entered the ancient desolate heaven domain. After they came out, they established their own forces and passed it down to this day. What kind of place was the ancient desolate heaven domain? While everyone was puzzled, their minds began to wander. In response to Lien Kwa's accusation, Mu Xiongcai sneered in disdain. Sect leader Lien Kwa's ability to distort the truth is really admirable. Why didn't you tell us that when the ancestor of my Heavenly Sword Pavilion went back on his words, the other 3 people abandoned my ancestor and escaped alone? You, Lien Kwa's eyes darkened. What? Are you angry? Ha! Since the 3 of them chose to abandon my ancestor at the moment of life and death, what face do you have to ask for the treasures my ancestor obtained? Nonsense. This is utter nonsense. Anger flashed in Lien Zhao's eyes, and the killing intent he exuded gradually rose. Mu Xiongcai, There's no point in talking anymore. Today, let me ask you, will you hand over the pagoda demon sword and the great pagoda demon art? The cold voice was like a sharp knife, filled with endless threat. The thick smell of gunpowder quickly spread. Mu Xiongkai's eyes turned cold as he spread his arms, emitting a domineering aura. How can we give the things left behind by our ancestor to the hands of evil people? Lien Kuo laughed sinisterly. Very good. You asked for it. Oomph. Lien Kuo, I've long seen through your tricks. Not to mention that it's impossible for us to give you those two things. Even if we did, you wouldn't let my heavenly sword pavilion off today. Ha ha, Mu Xiongkai, you're right about one thing. Boom. As soon as he finished speaking, Lien Kuo's blood and chi surged. With a wave of his sleeves, a blood-colored great Tao flowed down like a heavenly river, sweeping up a terrifying power and blasting towards Mu Xiongkai below. The space trembled, and the mighty power was like thousands of horses galloping towards them. Everyone's expression changed drastically, and they were all shocked by this aura. Oomph. Mu Xiongkai's eyes were slightly cold, and then a gorgeous golden light pattern bloomed from his body. The airflow caused his clothes to flutter, and a rapid, buzzing sound rang out in the air. A solid sword shadow suddenly flew out in front of Mu Xiongkai. The sword shadow was about 3 meters long and seemed to be real, and its whole body flowed with airwaves. Hiss! 2 rays of light, one red and one gold, intertwined, and the bright sword shadow directly pierced through the surging blood-colored great Tao, slashing upwards as if it was splitting the waves, attacking Lien Kuo in the sky. Swish! The golden sword shadow was extremely fast, and it was as bright as a divine light. The strong, strangling aura caused the space within 100 meters to fall into layers of distortion, and the wind was extremely sharp. Facing Mu Xiongkai's sword, Lien Kuo calmly stretched out his right palm, and a restless true inner force pulsed and condensed in his palm. Bang! With a muffled sound, light and shadow splashed everywhere, and a circle of scattered air waves exploded in the sky. Lien Kuo single-handedly withstood the strong attack of the golden sword shadow. But at the same time, a shadow flashed in the void, and Mu Xiongkai, who was still on the ground a second ago, suddenly appeared high up in the sky. So fast, Chu Hen, who was below, narrowed his eyes, and a look of surprise appeared on his face. Mu Xiongkai flashed in front of Lien Kuo like a ghost, and then raised his hand to slap the end of the golden sword shadow's hilt. Bang! The sword shadow, which had received a strong force, once again burst out with a dazzling light, as if it was going to pierce through Lien Kuo's arm on the spot. Get lost! Mu Xiongkai shouted. The terrifying sword momentum fell all the way down, and the joints of Lien Kuo's arm bent slightly, and his whole body was quickly pushed back by the impact. However, as he retreated, a frivolous smile appeared on Lien Kuo's face. In an instant, a blood mist erupted behind Lien Kuo, and he suddenly stopped retreating, stabilizing his footsteps in the sky. Immediately, the arm that was blocking the sword shadow seemed to be covered with a layer of blood-colored flame, and an astonishing, ferocious power emerged. Bang! With a loud explosion, a circle of red light sprang out, and the sword shadow split open, exploding into thousands of pieces. Chapter 534. Bang! A ring of violent energy rippled in the sky, and powerful air waves swept out recklessly. Along with the soaring blood chi behind Lien Kuo, the peerless golden sword shadow exploded into countless densely packed fragments in the sky. Mu Xiongkai, stop pretending. You can't hold on. Lien Zhao's body was surrounded by a red glow as he looked at Mu Xiongkai with a disdainful smile. On the other side, the illusory rain sex, Hellion Zhong, and the otherworldly spirit sex, Flying Snow Palace, narrowed their eyes. Mu Xiongkai's eyes turned cold as his sword aura became even more powerful. Whoosh! With a steady hum, a strange broadsword suddenly appeared in Mu Xiongkai's hand. The moment this sword appeared, It was like a bright moon shining in the night sky. It instantly attracted everyone's attention. This was a pagoda-like holy sword. It was narrow at the top and wide at the bottom, with distinct levels. It had a total of 9 sections and was as tall as a person. Its entire body was surrounded by a dark blue glow. Mu Xiongcai was extremely domineering, as if he was holding a miniature pagoda. Lian Xiao, the Buddha demon sword is here. If you have the guts, you can come and take it. Mu Xiongcai was extraordinarily handsome and domineering. He held the demon sword and pointed it at Lian Xiao. The surging sword aura quickly gathered into the Buddha's demonic sword. In an instant, the demonic sword blossomed with a demonic blue brilliance, causing heaven and earth to dim by a few shades. "Humph," Lian Xiao sneered. "Let's see how long you can last today." With that, Lian Xiao moved, leaving behind a blurry afterimage in the air that was difficult for the naked eye to catch. He sent a powerful palm strike at Mu Xiongcai. Mu Xiongcai raised his sword. The demon's sword seemed to gather the essence of the aurora in the sky, making it especially dazzling. Boom! The sword and the palm collided, causing light to flow everywhere. The thick red light and the blue sword light collided and exploded in the sky. The space shook violently, and the air waves stacked up. The Buddha demon's sword shone brightly again, and dozens of vine-like blue lights flew out of the sword, turning into sharp sword shadows that attacked Lian Xiao. Lian Xiao's pupils shrank slightly, but he calmly raised his arms and pushed out with both palms. Surging slaughter chi surged all the way down, whistling through the air. Shurapalm! Bang! The fierce collision of strength was like a tsunami crashing into a mountain, and the chaotic residual true essence swept through the world in all directions. A layer of solid true essence defense shield quietly appeared around the two of them. Then, Mu Xiong slashed his sword backhandedly. Accompanied by the sound of air being torn apart, 1,000 feet long sword light pierced through the sky, rolling up an endless destructive aura, and once again slashed towards Lian Xiao. Heaven slash. Facing Mu Xiongcai's shocking sword, Lian Kuo did not dare to be too careless. A strong lethality swept over. Liao Ruo's eyes shone with an evil blood-red light, and his pupils shrank to the size of a duck. His body, which was shrouded in red light, began to twist strangely. Phantom technique. Wong. In the next second, Lian Zhao's body was like a reflection on the surface of the water, twisting and turning like a dream. Almost at the same time, the sword shadow directly pierced through Lian Zhao's body, as if it was passing through the reflection on the surface of the water. It pierced through the sky and finally slashed into a mountain several miles away. Boom! The mountain collapsed and the earth cracked. Rocks flew everywhere. The power of this sword instantly split the towering mountain in half. The earth shook and the sky changed color. Many people on the frightening sword peak gasped. As expected of the master of the heavenly sword pavilion, the power of one sword was enough to shake a mountain to the ground. Especially when he was holding the Buddha demon sword. Mu Xiongcai was filled with an unparalleled, domineering aura. Wong! The blood-red light rose, and Lian Kuo's body quickly solidified. A sinister smile appeared on his face, and his cold eyes swept over the flying snow palace and Helian Zhong on the other side. You two old foxes want to reap the benefits without doing anything. You even noticed that? Sect Master Lian Kuo is really getting smarter. Sect Master Helian Zhong replied indifferently. Lian Kuo's eyes turned slightly cold, and his scarlet eyes revealed the ruthlessness of a venomous snake. I've already said that no one can snatch it from me today, especially when it's already in my hands. Wong. Just as he finished speaking, a thick, murderous aura swept out from the sky. Lian Kuo's aura exploded. He raised his arms, and 2 sharp blood blades suddenly appeared in his palms. These 2 blood blades suffused with a demonic bloody light. The left blade was like a curved hook, and the right blade was like a bone-scraping knife. They were extremely sharp and could cut through iron like mud. They looked as if they had grown out from Lien Kuo's hands, and were extremely terrifying. Hee, let's see if your demon sword can block my Shura Bloodbone blade. With that, Lien Kuo swept up a thick and threatening murderous aura and attacked Mu Xiongxai. The latter tightened his grip on the Buddha demon sword, and the powerful sword aura was as gorgeous as rain. Boom! Bang! The battle between the two profound world realm experts could be said to be exceptionally shocking. Bloody shadows crisscrossed, and sword rays flew everywhere. Every time the two clashed fiercely, the sky would tremble uneasily. Both of them moved extremely fast, and their attacks were swift and fierce. The huge aftershocks of the shockwaves flattened the vegetation on the surrounding mountains, and the waterfalls flowed backwards. Even the defensive formation that covered the frightening sword peak was cracked, and it could be destroyed at any time. While watching the battle, the various sects and forces all retreated while thinking about their next move. This is really strange. Thousand Cranes sect's Grand Elder, Duan Qingshan muttered to himself. What's strange, Grand Elder? Zhenju Yanhanlu asked. Duan Qingshan's eyes narrowed slightly, and he replied uncertainly. Although Pavilion Master Mu's sword technique looks extremely sharp and powerful, it gives off an indescribable feeling. Indescribable feeling? Everyone looked at each other. Chu Hen, who was standing next to Luo Mengchong, first glanced at Mu Feng and saw that the latter's brows were tightly furrowed, and he looked as if there was something weighing on his mind, and his expression was solemn, as if the other party did not have confidence in Mu Xiongxai at all. Could it be? The corner of Chu Hen's eyes narrowed, and then he silently released the power of the demonic sacred physique. His pair of pitch-black pupils quietly turned demonic purple, for black dots in the depths of his pupils chased after each other, and they rotated clockwise. Then, an invisible aura surged out from Chu Hen's eyes, and the flow of true origin energy in the bodies of the two powerful figures in the void appeared in his mind. That is, Chu Hen's expression changed, and he couldn't help but clench his fists. Luo Mengchong saw Chu Hen's strange expression, and she gently asked, "What's wrong?" Chu Hen didn't answer, and he looked back at Mu Feng. Looking at the other party's solemn face, Chu Hen's eyes began to surge with a deep and uneasy feeling. Chapter 535. The pagoda passing shadow sword was shocking, and the Azura bloodlight shot into the sky. The battle between Mu Xiongxai and Lien Xiao could be said to have caused the sky to darken and the sky to change color. The sky was filled with sword shadows and thick blood light crisscrossing, covering the sky and covering the earth, covering the sky above the heavenly sword pavilion. The pagoda demon sword in Mu Xiongxai's hand and the blood blade that grew out of Lien Xiao's palm clashed continuously, causing light patterns to fly in all directions and thousands of sparks to fly. After a series of intense battles, the two could be said to be evenly matched, and it was hard to tell who had the upper hand. In the eyes of the crowd, Mu Xiongxai and Lien Xiao were probably evenly matched, and it would be difficult to determine the victor until the end. However, there is still an extremely small number of people who slowly discovered that Mu Xiongxai's momentum seemed to be getting weaker and weaker, and the aura that he emitted was also different from before. What's going on? Pavilion Master's sword aura seems to be weakening? A Heavenly Sword Pavilion disciple asked anxiously. A few of the Heavenly Sword Pavilion's higher-ups frowned like two dead silkworms, and their expressions were full of seriousness. Bang! The sharp blood blade collided heavily with the pagoda demon sword, and the violent shock it caused was comparable to the collision of two mountains. A circle of intersecting red and blue light patterns spread out like ripples on the surface of the water. Mu Xiongxai held the sword hilt with both hands, and the tower-shaped demon sword flashed with blue light. The sword aura was astonishing. The pagoda demon sword and the Azura blood blade crossed each other, and a bloody mist rose from Lien Zhao's body. A strange smile appeared on his unusually pale face. "Hee, you can't hold on anymore? Looks like you're seriously injured." Pavilion Master Mu, his disdainful voice was filled with a thick sense of pride. Mu Xiongcai's face darkened, and sparks flew between the demon's sword and the blood blade. The endless blood qi that originated from Lin Zhao's body began to rapidly invade and counterattack. Oomph! Mu Xiongcai let out a muffled grunt and then shouted sternly, "You underestimate me, Lin Xiao Boom!" Before he finished speaking, an extremely majestic and restless aura suddenly spread out from Mu Xiongcai's body. This was a dark light of vital energy, and it contained an evil aura that was even colder and colder than Lin Zhao's. What? Lin Zhao's pupils trembled slightly. Mu Xiongcai's sword aura rose once again as a mountain-like strength erupted. The surging dark splendor was like an exploding ball of water, directly causing Lin Xiao to retreat. Don't forget, the ancestor of my heavenly sword pavilion was the sword demon. The thunderous voice caused everyone's eardrums to buzz. Mu Xiongcai raised the Buddha demon sword high and pointed it at the sky. A burst of dark blue light blossomed like a star. In the sky above the 9 heavens, the vast and mighty dark clouds churned, and a blue sword aura that was hundreds of feet wide descended from the sky like a swimming dragon. It coiled around the Buddha demon sword, rolled up a matchless ferocious power, and attacked Lin Xiao. Heaven-shocking demon sword. Wong, wong, the mountains trembled, and the wind howled furiously. The dark blue sword aura transformed into a 1,000-meter-long sword shadow that cut through the air and slashed at the enemy. The appearance of this sword seemed to have stunned the entire world. Wherever the sword shadow went, the space twisted and cracked. Lin Zhao's expression finally changed a little. At the same time, the monstrous blood mist from all directions rapidly gathered in front of him. Then, a red shadow that was hundreds of feet tall appeared in the sky above everyone's heads. The red shadow covered the heaven and earth, gathering the power of the Azura. In the face of Mu Xiongcai's heaven-shocking sword attack, the red shadow raised its arm and threw out a terrifying punch that was comparable to the eruption of a mountain. Disillusionary blood Azura. Bang! The matchless fist of the blood-colored shadow bombarded the heaven-shocking sword shadow, and an unprecedented violent shock exploded in the sky above the heavenly sword pavilion. The sky shook endlessly, and layers of powerful aftershocks roared. The biting cold airflow and strong wind blew on people's faces like knives. Many people couldn't even stand steadily. As the blood-colored shadow and the heaven-shocking sword aura shattered at the same time, a huge mushroom cloud rose in the void. The terrifying might caused Lin Xiao to retreat several hundred meters, but Mu Xiongcai still stood proudly in the same place without moving a single step. His clothes fluttered, and his sword intent soared into the sky. Oomph! Lin Xiao, who had stabilized himself, clenched his fist with an ugly expression. He didn't expect Mu Xiongcai to still be able to explode with such a powerful attack. If not for his quick reaction, that sword attack would have been enough to severely injure him. Rumble! At this moment, the sky suddenly turned even darker. Thick layers of clouds were piled up together, blocking out the sky and the sun as they pressed down. The crisscrossing lightning was like thousands of silver snakes, covering the sky above Mu Xiongcai's head. Illusion, lightning, tribulation, mending the heavens. What? Illusion? Everyone's heart faintly trembled. Looking to the side, they saw the illusory rain sect master, Helian Zhong, in the void to the north, flashing with dazzling silver lightning. Similarly, the otherworldly spirit sect master, Shui Fei Gong, in the sky to the south, was also surging with powerful true yuan, and a huge pressure spread out. This moment had finally come. Despicable, shameless, fighting 1 against 3. Aren't you afraid of the world laughing at you? Everyone from the heavenly sword pavilion cursed angrily. Laughing at me? Lin Xiao sneered and pointed at Mu Xiongcai. It'll be the same no matter how many of you go up. It's just that you're faster. Mu Xiongcai raised his demonic sword, and the killing intent in his body rose. The aura he exuded gradually turned cold. Those who offend my sword pavilion shall be executed. Executed? Today, I'll let you see with my own eyes how the 1,000-year heritage of your heavenly sword pavilion will be destroyed in a day. Azura sect, listen up. Yes. The disciplinary elder, Yu Sha, and the other Azura sect elders and disciples responded in unison. Flatten the heavenly sword pavilion. Kill everyone without mercy. Leave no one alive. Yes. The moment Lien Xiao gave the order, the Azura sect members, who had been waiting for a long time, charged at the heavenly sword pavilion like a pack of hungry wolves and tigers. The heavenly sword pavilion members were enraged, and their killing intent surged. Humph! A mere Azura sect dares to dream of devouring our heavenly sword pavilion? Let's see who dies today. Kill. Defend the sword pavilion with our lives. Boom! In an instant, a chaotic battle broke out between the Azura sect and the heavenly sword pavilion. The two groups immediately clashed fiercely. Saber light and sword shadows covered the sky. Battle intense soared, and the entire place was in chaos. All sorts of dazzling and chaotic true yuan waves set off waves after waves of commotion. The frightening sword peak, which was already in chaos, became even more turbulent. The Sword Law gathering was full of changes. But no one expected things to turn out like this. No one cared about the young masters, and no one paid attention to Chu Han, and no one paid attention to the other geniuses of the various sects. Chapter 536. Kill. Those who offend my sword pavilion must be killed. A mere Shura sect wants to destroy my heaven-devouring sword pavilion? What a fool's dream. Along with the battle cries, a chaotic battle broke out between the Shura sect and the heaven-devouring sword pavilion. The various changes that had occurred in the province's grand ceremony had caused the situation to become more and more difficult to control. Sword flashes and sword shadows intertwined. In an instant, the entire frightening sword peak was thrown into chaos. Lien Xiao, the eyes of the sword pavilion master Mu Xiongxai, who was wielding the pagoda demon sword, flickered coldly. He stood under the thousands of lightning clouds, emitting a chilling, killing intent. What advice do you have for me? Lien Xiao smiled sinisterly. If you dare to harm a single person from my heaven-devouring sword pavilion, I will make you pay a painful price. Ha 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 ha. You should take care of yourself first. Boom. With that, Lien Xiao once again swept up the surging bloodlight and launched a powerful attack. Vast true essence covered the sky like a tsunami. Almost at the same time, the sect master of the illusory rain sect, Helian Zhong, who was in the north, was covered in lightning. It was as if he had become one with the lightning tribulation area. Then, he moved and turned into a huge bolt of lightning that was hundreds of feet wide, shooting towards Mu Xiongxai. Pavilion Master Mu, your defeat is already decided. Why are you still so stubborn? Rumble. Following that, the sect master of the otherworldly spirit sect, Flying Snow Palace, also turned into a thick and majestic black fog and charged over. The attacks from the three sides were more ferocious than a tiger. Endless pressure pressed down on Mu Xiongxai, who was in the middle. Mu Xiongxai, lay down your arms and surrender. Flying Snow Palace shouted. The sudden gust of wind whistled through the air. Mu Xiongxai's eyes turned cold. There was no fear on his handsome face, only pride. The demon-wielding sword can fight 3 heroes. I have nothing to fear. 1 against 3. The Buddha demon sword burst out with thousands of beams of light. The fierce sword energy tore through the air as it clashed fiercely with Liao Miao, Flying Snow Palace, and Helian Zhong. Initially, it was just a battle between the Azura sect and the Celestial Sword Pavilion. However, upon seeing Flying Snow Palace and Helian Zhong joining the fray, the experts of the Illusory Rain sect and the Otherworldly Spirit sect decided to join the fray without any hesitation. Do it. Kill. Your Illusory Rain sect and Otherworldly Spirit sect are truly shameless, colluding with the Azura sect to harm our Heavenly Sword Pavilion. Do you still have any face left? An elder of the Heavenly Sword Pavilion roared. There's no point in saying anything more. Everyone has their own masters, so who can say for sure who's right and who's wrong? An expert from the Illusory Reigns sect retorted coldly. Since that's the case, let's see who's the real deal. My Heavenly Sword Pavilion swears to resist to the end. The Heavenly Sword Pavilion swears to resist to the end. At this moment, the people of the Heavenly Sword Pavilion had already made up their minds to cut off all means of retreat. The sword aura that erupted from each of them caused the space to tremble. The intense battle continued to escalate. Blood splattered and severed limbs flew everywhere. One after another, corpses fell to the ground. The cold wind rustled, and the endless killing intent made one's scalp go numb. Retreat. Don't get involved. The 100,000 people gathered at the Sword Codex Grand Meet retreated from the frightening Sword Peak as fast as they could. The various sects, clans, and forces all consciously retreated from the battlefield to avoid getting involved. Under such circumstances, even the forces that had a good relationship with the Heavenly Sword Pavilion did not dare to get involved. After all, when facing the Azura sect, Illusory Reigns sect, and Otherworldly Spirits sect, the three overlord forces, anyone would have to weigh their own strength. I'm afraid that the Heavenly Sword Pavilion is going to die today, a young man from the Moon In Cities group said in a deep voice. Not far away, Song Yuan just sneered. His tone carried a hint of mockery. It's not just a slim chance of survival, it's practically certain death. Due to his relationship with Chu Hen and Mu Feng, Song Yuan's attitude towards the Heavenly Sword Pavilion was one of schadenfreude. He did not feel the slightest bit of pity. Song Yuanja was not the only one who had the same attitude. After all, in the vast 100 Nations continent, the absence of the Heavenly Sword Pavilion meant that the other forces would have more opportunities to stand out. Pass down the order. Listen to my orders and prepare to leave at any time. Thousand Crane Sect's Grand Elder Duan Qingshan instructed Wu Yuan, Shengde, and the people of Sherwin Planet. Yes, Grand Elder. Everyone nodded in agreement, without any doubt. Even though the Thousand Crane Sect's strength was not inferior to the other four sects, Sect Master Qi Zhang, who was in charge, did not come. Once the Heavenly Sword Pavilion was defeated, it was hard to guarantee that the Azura sect would not attack the Thousand Crane sect. The Thousand Crane sect and the Azura sect had been enemies for a long time. To the Azura sect, Lien Zhao's presence was definitely the best opportunity to suppress the Thousand Crane sect. Therefore, it was best for the Thousand Crane sect to leave while Lien Zhao was dealing with Mu Xiongcai. Was to avoid unnecessary trouble. Junior sister Shilan, the Grand Elder wants you to bring junior brother Chu Hen over. Yin Hanlu walked over to Chu Hen, Shilan, and the others before he spoke solemnly. Shilan's beautiful brows knit together slightly as she gazed at Chu Hen and Luo Mengchong. However, Chu Hen was looking at Mu Feng with a solemn expression on his face. Mu Feng did not participate in the chaos in the surroundings. Similarly, not many people paid attention to him. He was clearly the young master of the Heavenly Sword Pavilion, yet his existence was as weak as air. All of you can leave. Today's matter has nothing to do with you. Before Chu Hen could answer, Mu Feng turned around and looked at him expressionlessly. Chu Hen could not think of any words to reply to Mu Feng. He knew very well that this situation was not something he could deal with, especially since he had killed so many people from the Azura sect. Once this matter was over, he would be in a dangerous situation as well. To Chu Hen, the best choice now was to leave as soon as possible. What about you? Even though he already knew the answer, Chu Hen could not help but say this. Mu Feng smiled, but his smile was slightly pale. He looked at Chu Hen and said, "Haha, I'm the young master of the Heavenly Sword Pavilion. Although I'm the most useless young master in the world." Before he finished speaking, a sharp blood-colored saber suddenly slashed in his direction. Hee, isn't this the young master of the Heavenly Sword Pavilion? Take this. Whoosh! The crisp sword chi caused the air to tremble. A sharp sword chi flashed before everyone's eyes like a flickering light. The assassin's crimson blade suddenly stopped in midair. His eyes were wide open, as if they were about to pop out of their sockets. A sharp sword had directly pierced through his throat, causing blood to gush out. Thank you for discovering me. It seems like I still have some sense of existence. Chapter 5:37. If you still see me as your brother, leave this place immediately. Just remember to avenge me in the future. I believe you have the ability to do so. Mu Feng pulled his sword out of the enemy's throat. Bright drops of blood fell lightly to the ground. It was a very eye-catching sight. A biting, cold, killing intent permeated every area of the frightening sword peak. The bleak, cold wind blew on people's bodies, chilling them to the bone. Shu Hen looked at the man in front of him, who was about the same age as him. The current Mu Feng seemed to be different from usual. The aura emitted from his body was indescribably cold. Shu Hen raised his eyelids and nodded deeply. You have always been my Shu Hen's brother. Mu Feng laughed heartily and nodded his head as well. Take care. After speaking, Mu Feng turned to the side and turned into a wisp of afterimage as he threw himself into the chaotic battle. Sword light and sword shadows were breathtaking. Mu Feng stood up with his sword, and a resplendent golden sword shadow bloomed from his body like the sun. Dense sword light rapidly spread out, and in an instant, several Azura sect disciples around him were mutilated. The miserable screams caused everyone to be a loss. After the initial shock, more than 10 people surrounded them. Hee, isn't this the young master of the Heavenly Sword Pavilion? I'd like to have a taste of your skills. Take down this idiot and Mu Xiongcai will be captured. That's right, let's do it. Everyone's inner energy surged, and they were as violent as ferocious beasts. A faint gray light flashed in Mu Feng's eyes, and he directly charged towards one of the people in front of him. Swoosh! Mu Feng's speed was extremely fast, and there was an afterimage in the air. Accompanied by the sound of wind breaking, Mu Feng's afterimage directly pierced through that person's body. An incomparably powerful sword aura rushed down, and that person was instantly torn into several pieces by the sword light. With a miserable cry, he died without a complete corpse. Bastard! As soon as they saw Mu Feng attack so ruthlessly, the eyes of the others in the surroundings almost split apart, and they were extremely furious, and they successively revealed formidable moves to launch attacks. Trapped in the encirclement, Mu Feng did not panic. Instead, he changed from his usual frivolous and careless attitude and challenged several enemies with a single sword. Sword shadows flashed wantonly, and his attacks and defenses were as smooth as flowing water. However, even with the addition of Mu Feng, the Heavenly Sword Pavilion side continued to lose ground. The Heavenly Sword Pavilion was fighting 1 against 3, and they were completely unable to hold on. More and more people from the Sword Pavilion lost their lives here. Shouts and cries of kill resounded throughout the shocking sword peak. The sky was dark, and there was no light from the sun or the moon. The statue of the sword ancestor, which was dozens of meters tall, quietly watched the scene in front of it. It had witnessed the rise of the Heavenly Sword Pavilion, but it was also about to witness its demise. Boom! In the sky above the 9 heavens, powerful and surging airwaves rippled continuously. Mu Xiongcai pushed the 3 of them away with a single sword strike. He looked down at the corpses of the Heavenly Sword Pavilion disciples that littered the ground. A thick layer of frost covered his handsome face. Shameless old thief, the Shurasek sect master, Lian Jin, sneered. He waved his sleeve and said, Mu Xiongcai, you are the one who refused a toast only to be forced to drink a forfeit. Don't blame us. Pavilion Master Mu, the Illusory Rain sect's sect master, Helian Zhong, said, if you hand over the Pagoda Demon Sword and the Great Pagoda Demon Art, my Illusory Rain sect will leave immediately. That's right. My Otherworldly Spirits sect will also agree to stop here. Flying Snow Palace added. Mu Xiongcai glared coldly at them as he laughed heartily. Ha! Stop being so hypocritical. Let me ask you one more time. With a change in momentum, Mu Xiongcai's aura turned cold. He swept his sharp gaze at the 3 of them. Are you going to scram or not? To scram or not? The powerful aura caused everyone's mind to tremble violently. Ridiculous! Lien Jin roared as boundless blood-colored quintessential essence gathered around him. Following that, he spread his arms and said angrily, "You people who refuse to repent until you see your coffin, die." Major blood formation. Rumble. With a series of heavy vibrations, more than a dozen blood pillars suddenly rushed out with Mu Xiongxai as the center. Each blood pillar was 1,000 feet tall, emitting a power that could support the heavens. On the blood pillars, there were complex and strange runes and secret inscriptions flashing, and especially violent power fluctuations caused the sky to faintly distort. At the same time, the illusory rain sex, Hellion Zhong, also released a lightning shadow. Wind and thunder rumbled as dark clouds covered the sky. The lightning that gathered above Mu Xiongxai interweaved to form a huge lightning net. The distorted space was dreamlike, and the destructive aura it exuded was terrifying. Heavenly illusion lightning net. At the same time, Drifting Snow Palace, the head of the otherworldly demonic sect, also released a powerful might. His Jinchi surged forth like a tsunami, forming a massive tornado that stirred up the entire sky, forming a fearsome beast that was as massive as a mountain. The beast looked like a dragon's head, but also a dragon's head. Its face was ferocious and terrifying, like an ancient demon. Oh my God! Looking at the scene in the sky, the people from the various sects far away from the frightening sword peak were shocked. Their eyes widened, and they were all shocked. Was this the full power of a profound world realm expert? Just the pressure he was emitting at this moment was enough to make countless people suffocate. Pavilion Master. Many elders and disciples of the Heavenly Sword Pavilion were deeply worried. Mu Feng could not help but tighten his grip on the hilt of his sword, and his eyes faintly reddened. Lien Xiao revealed a sinister smile. "It's over, Pavilion Master Mu." Buzz. In an instant, more than a dozen blood pillars emitted a startling light. Every beam of light carried a thick murderous aura as it attacked Mu Xiongxai. The space was distorted, and the lightning net covered the sky. The power of destruction could destroy mountains and rivers. The towering beast was as furious as a mountain. It covered the sky and was unstoppable. Facing this powerful killing move that required him to go all out, Mu Xiongxai's face did not show the slightest hint of fear. There was only that admirable determination and perseverance. The irresistible pressure surged like a storm, and the surrounding space fell into a violent uneasiness. Just when everyone thought that Mu Xiongxai was about to be destroyed, his eyes flashed with determination. Boom! In the next moment, two dark blue beams of light intertwined and shot into the sky. Mu Xiongxai raised his sword with both hands, and the pagoda-shaped pagoda demon sword shone brightly. The wrath of the heavens, the appearance of the demon, the appearance of the sword pagoda, pagoda slash. Great pagoda demon slaying skill. What? The thunderous sound caused everyone's ears to ring. When the words great pagoda demon slaying skill exploded in the sky, Mu Xiongxai's aura became strong and cold. In an instant, the two dark blue beams of light quickly gathered together and suddenly turned into an ancient pagoda that was more than 1,000 meters tall. A desolate and ancient aura filled the sky and spread in all directions. A vast blue halo rose up like clouds and mist. Boom! Bang! Tens of thousands of rays of bloodlight, thousands of lightning nets, and the raging giant beast directly attacked Mu Xiongxai. A series of destructive forces collided like meteorites from outer space, and all sorts of violent forces intertwined, creating a turbulent energy wave. Resplendent light patterns stacked up like fireworks. The sky and earth spun, and the mountains and rivers were about to be destroyed. The rising airwaves seemed to want to blast a huge hole in the sky. Under countless trembling gazes, light patterns flew everywhere, and an ancient pagoda that was 1,000 meters tall gradually appeared in everyone's vision. The ancient pagoda had 9 levels, and it was narrow at the top and wide at the bottom. Its entire body was flowing with a dark blue halo. And in the middle of the pagoda, Mu Xiongxai leaned against the pagoda, one hand holding his chest and the demon's sword under his feet. Fresh blood flowed out. It was obvious that he had suffered a serious injury. But even so, Mu Xiongxai still looked like a supreme being and looked down on everyone. I didn't expect you to use this move. Lin Zhao's eyes turned cold, and then he sneered. But even so, you are just struggling at death's door. With that, a strong surge of true essence surged out again. Helion Zhong and Flying Snow Palace also moved. After personally witnessing the power of the Great Pagoda Demon slaying technique, everyone was tempted. The cold wind was bleak, and it was bone-chilling. Tens of thousands of people stared at the heroic figure in the void, who stopped in the middle of the pagoda. A hero was dying, and many people felt pity for him. But at this moment, Mu Xiongxai's thick eyebrows raised, and his gaze pierced through the sea of people and suddenly landed on a young figure. That young figure was currently being surrounded and attacked by more than 10 people. But when he was fighting, his attention was on the middle-aged man in the void who was holding the demon's sword. The two of them were so close, yet so far apart. But what he could not let go of was the deep bond between father and son. Feng! Suddenly, Mu Xiongxai opened his mouth, and his blood-stained lips moved slightly. Feng, give up your sword. Give up your sword. The clear 4 words were light and ethereal, as if they were floating across the sea, passing through the crowd, and then into the other party's ears. When he heard this, Mu Feng's heart could not help but tremble. He suddenly turned his head, and his gaze met Mu Xiongxai's from afar. Give up his sword? Why did he have to give up his sword? Didn't he always want him to take the position of Heavenly Sword Pavilion Master? Didn't he want him to wield the Pagoda Demon Sword, and then cultivate the Great Pagoda Demon slaying technique? For a sword cultivator, once he gave up his sword, it meant that he would no longer wield it. Are you completely disappointed in me? Mu Feng asked in his heart. The sentence was stuck in his throat, and he could not say it no matter what. Even at this moment, as your son, am I still completely disappointing you? Mu Feng's eyes turned red, and the hand holding the sword began to tremble. Give up your sword. Mu Xiongxai's voice was loud and deafening. Then he stood up, and a demonic blue light was released from his body. Along with it, there was also a strong and special aura. At the same time, what made everyone confused was that the statue of the sword ancestor on the frightening sword peak suddenly shone brightly. Seeing Mu Xiongxai like this, the faces of the elders of the Heavenly Sword Pavilion changed drastically. All of their faces were filled with intense pain. Pavilion Master, don't. Pavilion Master, you can't do that. What was going on? Under the shocked gazes of the crowd, the majestic statue of the sword ancestor released a strong light. The mountains trembled, and the spiritual energy in the surroundings churned. Chapter 538. Feng, abandon your sword. After Mu Xiongxai said this to Mu Feng, a demonic blue light suddenly erupted from his body. At the same time, the majestic statue of the sword ancestor on the square of the frightening sword peak also shone brightly. This is Chu Hen, who was outside of the battle, raised his eyelids, and his pupils trembled. He subconsciously grabbed Luo Mengchang's hand. Step back. Luo Mengchang did not know why, but seeing Chu Hen's fearful expression, she knew that what was going to happen next was not a small matter. Pavilion Leader, you can't. Pavilion Leader, you can't. Many of the elders of the Heavenly Sword Pavilion's upper echelon paled. Their eyes were filled with sorrow and anger. Boom! Thunder roared, and the wind howled. The wantonly rolling dark clouds stirred in the sky above the ninth heaven, and the world became dim in an instant. Immediately after, the space trembled violently, and a strong dark blue pillar of light shot out from the sword ancestor statue, shooting straight into the sky. The majestic beam of light pierced straight into the vast layer of clouds. Then, with the pillar of light as the center, the dark clouds rotated, forming a vortex of nebula that covered the sky. The majestic nebula vortex looked like a huge millstone hanging over everyone's head. The world was filled with an extremely violent and intense aura. A heart-palpitating aura of death filled the air. Don't you want the Great Pagoda Demon slaying technique? This is... Mu Xiongtsai stood proudly in the center of the pagoda, his aura soaring. Although the aura he emitted was getting stronger, his life force was gradually weakening. Lien Feng, Flying Snow Palace, and Helian Zhong looked at each other and saw the shock in each other's eyes. Lien Feng shouted coldly, Mu Xiongtsai, you actually burned your life force to forcefully use the Great Pagoda Demon slaying technique. Looks like you want to die. Both his body and soul were destroyed. Upon hearing these words, everyone who witnessed this scene couldn't help but feel their hearts tremble. Mu Xiongkai looked at the crowd, his eyes filled with arrogance. How can the 1,000-year foundation of my ancestors be destroyed by my hands? Today I, Mu Xiongkai, will sacrifice my soul to the sword and turn into a demon. With my broken body, I will guard the heavenly sword pavilion. Boom! As soon as he finished speaking, tens of thousands of dark blue light beams descended from the sky and converged into the ancient giant pagoda behind Mu Xiongkai. The giant pagoda, which was floating with a halo, shone brightly and stood under the sky like a god. The ancient pagoda let out a buzzing sound, and the spiritual energy between heaven and earth also began to violently fluctuate. Immediately after, Mu Xiongtsai gripped the sword with both hands and pointed it downwards. The shining Buddha demon sword pierced downwards, as if it was stabbing into the ground. Pung! The space where the demonic sword struck warped violently. Then, as if a star had exploded, a powerful shockwave with Mu Xiongtsai as the center turned into a blue halo that swept out in all directions. The condensed light ripples were like water waves that spread endlessly. Everywhere they went, the sky twisted, and even the dust disappeared completely. The expressions of Lien Xiao, Flying Snow Palace, and Helian Zhong, who were closest to Mu Xiongtsai, changed drastically. They hurriedly mobilized their inner yuan to defend. Bang, bang, bang. 3 consecutive heavy sounds rang out. The terrifying impact was comparable to the impact of a mountain. The scattered light ripples scattered like a rain of light, and the shockwave rose. Then, the 3 figures were all sent flying. Damn it! Lien Xiao, who was the first to stabilize himself, had a gloomy expression. A trickle of blood flowed from the corner of his mouth. As for Helian Zhong and Flying Snow Palace, they both clutched their chests, and blood flowed out of their mouths. However, the scene of Mu Xiongtsai repelling the 3 did not make anyone from the Heavenly Sword Pavilion happy. Instead, the sorrow on their faces became even more intense. Clang! The thunderous storm became even more terrifying. The raging waves were like the premonition of a god destroying the world. Mu Xiongtsai's long hair and robes fluttered in the wind. He was free and arrogant, and he was as domineering as a monarch. I, Mu Xiongtsai, will die with my sword today. I will not let down the sword pavilion. Foolish to the extreme. Lien Xiao sneered coldly. You are already an arrow at the end of its flight. This heavenly sword pavilion cannot be saved. After speaking, Lien Xiao waved his arm and gave another order. Shura sect, listen up. Slaughter them all, and bathe the heavenly sword pavilion in blood. Yes, sect leader. After receiving the order, the people of Shura sect once again launched a crazy counterattack against the people of the Heavenly Sword Pavilion. Their killing intent rose, and they were like wolves and tigers. But at this moment, Mu Xiongtsai raised his sword with both arms. The pagoda demon's sword released thousands of rays of light, and the ancient pagoda behind him suddenly soared into the sky. With the momentum of crashing into the sky, the tip of the pagoda fiercely smashed into the vortex of clouds in the sky. Boom! In the next instant, a huge hole appeared in the vast vortex of clouds. It was as if the heavens had been pierced through. Countless rays of blue light poured down, enveloping the shocking sword peak below. At the same time, the statue of the sword ancestor burst out with a blue light that was as surging as clouds and mist. The dense light, with the shocking sword peak as the center, spread to the other peaks of the heavenly sword pavilion. What was even more shocking was that when the blue light touched the people of Shura's sect, illusory rain sect, and otherworldly spirit sect, they all exploded into a mist of blood. On the other hand, the people of the heavenly sword pavilion were completely unharmed. What? Everyone turned pale with fright. You want to destroy my heavenly sword pavilion with just the three of you? You must be dreaming, Mu Xiongcai roared angrily. At the same time, Mu Xiongcai's long hair scattered behind his head. His originally black hair was now white, and the skin on his face was wrinkled, burning his life force to forcefully execute the great pagoda demon art. Looking at the scene before him, Mu Feng was completely dumbfounded. His face was filled with helplessness as his heart trembled. Even though he knew that Mu Xiongcai had made a mistake in the final stage of the great pagoda demon art, Mu Feng never imagined that the mistake would have such a huge impact on Mu Xiongcai. So much so that he had to sacrifice himself to unleash the power of the demonic art. No! Feeling Mu Xiongcai's weakening life force, Mu Feng could not help but cry out. In his daze, Mu Feng had forgotten that he was in danger. The enemies surrounding him did not stop and brandish the weapons in their hands. "Young master, be careful." A sword pavilion disciple who was close to Mu Feng shouted with his eyes wide open. However, the warning did not make Mu Feng put up a defense in time. Completely stunned, Mu Feng's attention was focused on the middle-aged figure in the void. "Hee, I won't send you off, young Master Mu." An evil smile appeared on the faces of the few people. Suddenly, an icy cold aura suddenly rose between the heavens and the earth. Along with waves of distortions in the space, a demonic purple flame suddenly sprang up out of thin air. The strange purple flame quickly climbed onto the few people who attacked Mu Feng. Accompanied by a series of shrill cries, the people who attacked Mu Feng were all turned into ashes. What was going on? Everyone's eyes widened. Mu Xiongcai's eyelids twitched, and his tone was filled with gratitude. "Brother Chu Hen, I'll leave Feng in your hands." "I know," Chu Hen replied in a loud voice. He dragged out a string of bright light in the air and instantly arrived in front of Mu Feng. He reached out with one hand, grabbed Mu Feng's shoulder, and pulled him away. Like a puppet, Mu Feng allowed Chu Hen to drag him away from the skies of the frightening sword peak. His eyes blankly stared at Mu Xiongcai in front of him. His father, who was once peerless in his generation, was now rapidly aging in front of him. Seeing his father's life force gradually decline, Mu Feng's heart was filled with mixed feelings. However, Mu Xiongcai smiled. His smile was a little dry, and it was filled with guilt. "Feng, abandon your sword. The heavenly sword pavilion no longer needs you. The disputes of this world have nothing to do with you. Leave this place and live the life you want." Boom! An earth-shattering cold aura rose like a tsunami. Mu Xiongcai's vitality decreased sharply again, and the power from the sword ancestor statue below was even more shocking. Mu Xiongcai waved his sword, and a blue sword aura slashed towards Lian Xiao, Flying Snow Palace, and Helian Zhong. Bang! The three of them were knocked back again. The blood in their bodies churned, and their faces paled. "Old thing," Lian Xiao cursed fiercely. Mu Xiongcai used his life to resist. He did not care about the consequences and temporarily stopped their actions. But once his vitality was exhausted, it meant that Mu Xiongcai's body would be destroyed. The entire heavenly sword pavilion was in chaos. The vast blue fog continued to spread out, but because Mu Xiongcai was nearing the end of his life, the speed at which the fog spread was extremely slow. However, the Shura sect, illusory rain sect, and otherworldly spirit sect were still attacking. The number of casualties in the heavenly sword pavilion increased. On the frightening sword peak, there were cries of sorrow everywhere. Looking at Mu Feng, who was gradually getting further away, Mu Xiongcai's face revealed a comforting smile, and a certain chord in the depths of Mu Feng's heart was suddenly touched. At this moment, he could clearly feel Mu Xiongcai's deep love for him. At this moment, Mu Feng suddenly came to a realization. The man who had ignored him for 20 years had not truly given up on him. Abandoned the sword. It was not because he was disappointed, but because he wanted to protect him. The 20 years of bond between father and son was like an invisible rope that tightly bound Mu Feng's heart. At this moment, Mu Feng suddenly broke free from Chu Hen's control. He suddenly turned around and struck Chu Hen with his palm. The powerful force caused Chu Hen, who was caught off guard, to fly back like a meteorite. "Go!" Mu Feng sternly shouted. His eyes were filled with a strong sense of determination. With a flash of his body, he appeared above the silent sword peak like a ray of light, allowing the vast blue light to envelop him. Chapter 539. Mu Feng, begged the demon. Mu Feng appeared above the frightening sword peak in a flash and allowed the vast blue light to envelop him. The ear-piercing sound was filled with endless rage, brutality, and determination. Everyone's heart skipped a beat. Mu Xiongkai, who was standing under the dark sky, had his eyes wide open and his face was filled with astonishment. Boom! In the next moment, a dark blue light once again shot out from the sword ancestor sculpture. The resplendent and powerful light runes traversed the sky and directly enveloped Mu Feng. Mu Feng's body trembled violently, and the blood vessels all over his body bulged like the mysterious runes. Buzz, buzz. A huge energy fluctuation rose from Mu Feng's body, and a cold aura spread in all directions. The rich blue light, runes around Mu Feng, churned and churned. All the spiritual energy in the world surged into Mu Feng's dantian. A cruel aura that made one's heart palpitate constantly surged out from Mu Feng's body. Mu Feng let out a loud roar like a ferocious beast. Sword demon Shin body, awaken. Awaken. Before he finished speaking, thousands of light runes burst out from Mu Feng's body like the radiant sun. The world was filled with killing intent. The brilliant blue light was dazzling and emitted an endless evil aura. Countless beams of light shot straight at the Azura sect, Illusory Rain sect, and otherworldly spirit sect disciples. Dozens of muffled explosions rang out, and the group of people exploded into clouds of blood mist on the spot. What? The scene in front of them completely stunned everyone present, especially the people from the Heavenly Sword Pavilion. The young master who had been resentful of them for failing to meet his expectations was now like a different person. His entire body was emitting a biting, cold, evil aura. The powerful bloodline boundary power filled every inch of his skin and flesh. Light runes flowed like divine light. Bastard. Shurasek's sect, Master Lien Kuei's face was ashen. He fiercely glared at the weak Mu Xiongcai, then charged towards Mu Feng with a boundless, ferocious aura. I'll kill this little bastard first, then I'll deal with you, you old bastard. Haha, you won't have a chance. Mu Xiongcai smiled indifferently. Immediately after, the last of Mu Xiongcai's life energy was released, and the Buddha demon sword shone brightly. The sky shook, and the world was restless. Bang! An earth-shattering noise was followed by a shocking scene that was comparable to the explosion of a star. Under everyone's horrified gazes, the ancient and desolate tower that stood under the sky suddenly exploded. Endless, dense, dark blue light was like a volcano that had completely erupted. The fiendish blue light that covered the sky and the earth rapidly swept out. Mu Xiongcai's aura instantly disappeared completely. Father! Mu Feng trembled as he exclaimed. The second before he was swallowed by the dense blue light, Mu Feng clearly received a sincere concern from Mu Xiongcai's eyes. Once upon a time, under Mu Xiongcai's strict appearance, there was the softest love. The world only knew that a father's love was like a mountain, and that there was nothing he could give more than his everything. At this moment, Mu Feng regretted. He regretted being cold to Mu Xiongcai all these years, and regretted his words that night. At this moment, Mu Feng finally understood why Mu Xiongcai only told him about the great pagoda demon art and the secret of the sword demon Xian body 20 years later. Because Mu Xiongcai did not want Mu Feng to walk on his old path. He only wanted to shoulder the entire Heavenly Sword Pavilion alone, and shoulder the responsibility passed down by his ancestors. But unexpectedly, Mu Xiongxai still made a mistake when he was cultivating the Great Pagoda Demon Art. Under such circumstances, Mu Xiongxai had no choice but to bring Mu Feng in. However, at the moment of life and death, Mu Xiongxai still chose to make Mu Feng abandon the sword. The cycle of karma. Before abandoning the sword demon awakened. Looking at the majestic figure that disappeared between heaven and earth, Mu Feng's eyes overflowed with hot tears. His hands turned into claws, and his eyes spewed out a dark blue light. His angry voice shook the heavens. When I, the sword demon, return, I will definitely dye the sky with your blood. Anger, unwillingness, hatred, and all kinds of emotions erupted from Mu Feng's body at the same time. The sword demon bloodline was constantly activated, and Mu Feng's face revealed a sinister aura. He waved his arms, and the majestic evil aura of heaven and earth surged up, covering all directions. Boom! The heavens fell and the earth cracked, and the sky lost its color. The blue light mist that contained extremely terrifying power was like a demon swallowing everything around it. The people of Heavenly Sword Pavilion were all submerged in it. As for the people from other sects and forces who came into contact with the strange light patterns, they were instantly reduced to a mist of blood. Apart from a few strong experts who could withstand the impact, most people could not withstand the impact of the energy. Damn it! I didn't expect that old fart, the sword demon, to leave behind such a strange power. The sect leader of the otherworldly spirit sect, Flying Snow Gong, cursed. Let's go. Retreat quickly. We have to be fast. The demonic repellent spread at an extremely fast speed. After it engulfed the frightening sword peak, it continued to engulf the surrounding peaks. All the sects and clans fled in panic. The people from the Thousand Crane sect, Shura sect, sect of Illusory Rain, Moon Execution City, Grand Firmament City. The people from the other sects and clans fled in all directions, afraid that they would be killed if they were too slow. Refinement Puppet, Flying Snow Palace, and Hellion Zhong, the three top experts, were both shocked and furious. However, the power of the explosion was left behind by the first-generation sword ancestor 1,000 years ago. Even they did not dare to face it head-on. In their anger, they could only lead their subordinates and flee. The vast and mighty blue light was like a tidal wave, blotting out the sky and covering the earth, enveloping the surroundings. Chu Hen, be careful. Luo Mengchang took the palm that Chu Hen handed over to her, and the two of them fled toward the periphery of the Heavenly Sword Pavilion at an extremely fast speed. The vast scene was like a huge disaster. Tens of thousands of people fled, and it was a hair-raising scene. The whole scene was in chaos. The people behind them had already turned into a hazy sea of clouds, but these clouds had a dark blue luster. As Chu Hen left with Luo Mengchang, he kept looking back at the rising demonic repellent sea behind him, but Mu Feng's figure had already disappeared in the thick fog. Even with his demon eyes, it was difficult to see the situation inside. Don't worry, he will be fine. Luo Mengchang comforted him softly. Chu Hen nodded silently, but his heart was filled with mixed feelings. What kind of change would this change to Mu Feng? He had no idea now. The chapter about the Heavenly Sword Pavilion is finally finished. It was very difficult, especially after not updating for 2 months. It is even more difficult to seamlessly connect the plot. There are many characters that I have forgotten their names, personalities, and the appearance that I imagined in my mind. Even the moves and skills that the protagonist has learned, I have forgotten. I can only flip through the previous chapters and slowly review them to find the familiarity of the past. Chapter 540. The Prefecture Grand Ceremony was full of changes. After an unknown amount of time, the apocalyptic disaster finally came to an end. However, the entire Heavenly Sword Pavilion was still shrouded in a vast, overlapping blue light. It was as majestic as the sea of clouds, surging with great momentum. When the thick blue fog stopped spreading, the various sects and families all stopped to rest. Thinking of what had happened, they could not help but feel a lingering fear. In the forests, in the ravines, on the mountaintops, everywhere, panting sounds could be heard. That was close. I almost lost my life. Mu Xiongcai is indeed a pavilion master. That was too dangerous. What a pity. The overlord of our 100 Nations prefecture has perished just like that. I'm afraid there will no longer be a heavenly sword pavilion in the world. Seeing the heavenly sword pavilion fall to such a state, many people had mixed feelings. Look, what? Look at the heavenly sword pavilion. Oh, along with a strange commotion, everyone's eyes turned to look behind them. They saw that the thick clouds shrouding the heavenly sword pavilion were gradually dissipating. At the same time, the thick blue fog that permeated the world also receded. After about 5 minutes, a huge semicircle of light appeared before everyone's eyes. This light covered an extremely large area, covering about 2/3 of the heavenly sword pavilion. It even protected the main peaks of the sword pavilion. Inside the light, the fog was hazy, making it difficult to see what was happening inside. The huge energy light shrouded the surroundings, like the protection of a demon god. No one dared to offend it. Mu Xiongcai, I didn't expect you to have such a trick up your sleeve. I really miscalculated. On the peak of a towering mountain, the Shurasek sect leader, Lian Jin, clenched his fists. His narrowed eyes flashed with sharpness. Sect leader, after we forcefully break this defensive barrier, we will raise the heavenly sword pavilion to the ground. The one speaking was the enforcement elder, Yusha. Lian Jin sneered. If this defensive barrier was so easy to break, why would Mu Xiongcai risk his life to activate it? Yusha was at a loss for words. So what if there's a defensive barrier? We can't hide forever. Even Mu Xiongcai is dead. What can the remaining cats and dogs do? Send someone to guard this place. If there's anything unusual, inform me immediately. Yes, sect leader. Also, your performance in the Sword Codex Grand Meeting this time has really disappointed me. Lian Jin said in an ice-cold voice. The Azura sect members behind him were shocked, especially Tu Yi, Ai Lan, and the other upper echelon core disciples. Yusha's body trembled slightly. Then he bowed and said, Sect Master, they have tried their best. I hope Sect Master will be lenient. Yin Yu, of Sect. Lin of Palace. Lin of Lin. Lian Xiao first cast a glance at the blood young Master Shui, who was being supported by someone, cut a sorry figure, and was in a deep coma. And of Mu and of Sect, of Yin's Sect, he was of Imperial, Yang of Chun. Yin of, who is that young man? Reporting to the Sect Master. Tu Yi trembled as he stepped forward and said in a low voice, That little bastard's name is Chu Han. He was also the one who killed Langley. Tu Yi's face was slightly twisted as he spoke. The burn scars on his face looked particularly hideous. Oh, Lian Fu was slightly surprised. So it's him. That little bastard ability is indeed a bit strange, especially that purple flame. It's very domineering. Yusha continued. In their minds, they suddenly thought back to the moment when Chu Han had saved Mu Feng. A bunch of purple flames instantly turned more than 10 people into ashes. It was breathtaking and chilling. This kid will definitely become a big problem for me in the future, Lian Xiao muttered to himself. Sect Master, I'll immediately bring people to kill him. Yusha said, There's no rush. Lian Xiao raised his hand slightly as a disdainful sneer appeared on his face. I only said that he would become a big problem in the future. But now he's just an ant in my eyes. Compared to him, I'm more interested in those rats from the Thousand Crane sect. Everyone's eyes lit up immediately. I understand. Currently, the Thousand Crane sect's high-ranking members and genius disciples were in the vicinity. The only person who could fight against Lian Xiao, Qi Zhang, was still far away in the Thousand Crane sect. If they surrounded the people from the Thousand Crane sect here today, they would be devoured by the Azura sect sooner or later. There's no time to lose. Search for those rats from the Thousand Crane sect with all your might. Once you find them, kill them without mercy." Lien Shao paused and lowered his tone. Yes. After a long time, the sky turned bright blue once more. Only the area of the Sky Sword Pavilion was slightly gloomy. A huge semicircular light barrier covered the mountains, rivers, and mountains, sealing off the area. The huge light barrier flowed with a gentle halo that blocked everything. After that, the people of the various sects who had recovered from their shock gradually left. Everyone had different feelings. Some felt pity, and some took pleasure in the misfortune of the Sky Sword Pavilion. It was undeniable that what happened to the Sky Sword Pavilion would cause the 100 Nations region, which had not been peaceful recently, to become even more chaotic. Would this be the end of the chaos? Or would it be the beginning of chaos? In a valley, Chu Hen looked up at the mountains that were protected by the light barrier. He breathed a deep sigh of relief, then turned around helplessly and melancholy. What came into view was a young girl leaning against a large tree. She had a refined temperament like a lotus that came out of the water. Her absolutely beautiful eyes revealed unconcealable concern. Looking at the woman in front of him that could move people's hearts, the gloominess between Chu Hen's eyebrows could not help but disperse. His handsome face revealed a trace of a warm smile. "Don't worry. I'm fine. I believe your good friend will be fine as well. Pavilion Master Mu isn't an ordinary person." "Yes." Chu Hen nodded, then walked to Luo Mengchang's side and gently held her hand. "Let's go." "Where are we going?" "I'll listen to you," Chu Hen replied. Luo Mengchang smiled faintly. Her bright eyes and white teeth were very attractive. "Really? I've always wanted to go to the outside world of the 100 Nations region. Are you coming with me?" Chu Hen thought about it, then nodded in agreement. "Okay, then let's go." The two of them held hands and were very close. Perhaps after witnessing the changes that happened in the Sky Sword Pavilion, the two of them seemed to understand one thing more, and that was to cherish the present. Rustle, rustle, rustle. However, not long after the two of them walked out, a series of footsteps could be heard. Then, more than 10 figures actually came from the dense forest in front of them. Chapter 541. Who are they? Looking at the dozen figures who suddenly came out of the dense forest in front of him, Chu Hen's heart tightened. He subconsciously shielded Luo Mengchang behind him, and a look of caution appeared on his face. "Father!" But then Luo Mengchang shouted in surprise. "Father?" Luo Qiong, the head of the Luo clan, one of the 8 great clans of Moon City? Chu Hen was startled. He saw that the people who came did not have any dangerous aura, and the leader was a middle-aged man about 40 years old. The man was dressed in a brocade robe, and he had an extraordinary bearing. His face was like jade, and he looked very handsome. But if one looked closely, they would find that there were many white hairs on his temples, and there were shallow grooves on his forehead. These were obviously the traces left behind by years of hard work, wind, frost, rain, and snow. Even so, the middle-aged man in front of him still had a unique temperament. "Young lady." The people behind Luo Qiong bowed respectfully in unison. "Father, why are you here?" Luo Mengchang walked in front of Chu Hen, but she did not immediately return to Luo Qiong's side. Instead, she looked at him with surprise. Luo Qiong did not answer, but looked at Chu Hen with his slightly aged eyes and said, "Can I talk to my daughter alone?" Chu Hen was stunned, and he was caught off guard. "Of course." He immediately cupped his fists and bowed politely. "Junior, Chu Hen greets the head of the Luo clan." Luo Qiong nodded with a smile, but the emotions contained in this smile were a little complicated. Luo Mengchang was a little confused, and she always felt that Luo Qiong was a little strange. "Chang'er, come with me," Luo Qiong said, and took the lead to walk toward a narrow path in the forest. "Go. I'll wait for you here," Chu Hen said softly. "Okay." Luo Mengchang agreed softly, and then left with Luo Qiong. Not long after the two of them left, another team appeared at this place. This group was none other than the other clans in Moon City, and Fist Master Tsang Yuanjia was among them. "Hee hee, what a coincidence to meet you here." Song Yuanjia looked at Chu Hen playfully and said. Chu Hen furrowed his brows and ignored the other party. However, to Chu Hen's surprise, the Luo family did not greet Song Yuanjia and the others. It was obvious that the two of them had met before this. Seeing that Chu Hen was ignoring him, Song Yuanjia sneered, "What are you still doing here? What does it have to do with you?" Chu Hen retorted with some displeasure. "Hey, everyone here is from my Moon City. Don't you feel like an eyesore standing here? If it's an eyesore, you can go further away. No one asked you to stand here." "You." Song Yuanjia's face sank. His words were rebutted by Chu Hen, which made him feel a little embarrassed. However, he could not defeat Chu Hen, so he did not dare to make a move. He then took a deep breath and sneered, "Humph, to be honest, you defeated young Master Shui only because of the Heavenly Spirit Curse seal. You don't have much ability. If my brother Song Yujie was here, you would not have a chance to be the champion of the Sword Code meet." Song Yujie, the leader of the 4 young masters, young Master Yu. Upon hearing this name, many people more or less had a look of admiration on their faces. "Are you done?" Chu Hen replied indifferently. "Umph, how can you be a match for Luo Mengchong with your background? I advise you to give up on this idea. To be honest, she will soon be a member of our Song family." "What did you say?" Chu Hen's pupils shrank, and his face turned frosty. The quiet forest was filled with the fresh and moist smell of the earth. A few rays of sunlight shone through the treetops, making it look exceptionally gentle. Luo Qiong, who was walking in front, suddenly stopped in his tracks. After a moment of hesitation, he slowly turned around. His gentle eyes were filled with fatherly love. "It seems like you like that young man a lot." Luo Mengchong smiled softly, and her beautiful eyes wandered. "Yes, he is indeed very attractive to me, and he treats me very well." Luo Qiong hesitated for a moment and said with difficulty, "If you had to choose between him and Song Yujie, who would you choose?" "Who would you choose?" The sudden question made the smile on Luo Mengchong's face freeze. She stared blankly at the gentle middle-aged man in front of her. He was the person who understood her the most. Who would she choose? There was no need to ask this question. "Father you?" Luo Qiong did not avoid Luo Mengchong's gaze, but the guilt between his eyebrows was getting stronger. "I'm sorry, Shang. This is a request from the Song family." Luo Mengchong murmured. Luo Qiong nodded. He had an indescribable feeling in his heart. More than 10 years ago, there was an incident in Taishao City. The Luo family was chased out of the city by the Mu family and fled all the way to Moon City. In order to revive the family, the Luo family lived under someone else's roof and were like servants. No one had the right to blame Luo Qiong, not even Luo Mengchong, because she knew that he had never wronged her all these years. Back then, between dignity and the family, Luo Qiong chose to put down his dignity and protect the family. Now, between happiness and the family, how would Luo Mengchong choose? "Father, give me time. I will definitely take back Taishao City with my own hands." Luo Mengchong looked at him firmly and said. Luo Qiong could not help but clench his fist behind his back. How could he not know how talented his daughter was? He also understood that as long as she was given time, the Luo family would definitely prosper. But at the same time, the Song family also knew this. That was why the Song family had bound her so quickly. With a long sigh, Luo Qiong shook his head helplessly. "If you married Song Yujie, the Song family will immediately help us return to Taishao City, take back the Taishao sword, and fulfill your grandfather's lifelong wish." The Song family, the head of the 8 great families of Moon City, was a first-class force. With their strength, it would not be difficult to take down the Mu family of Taishao City. "What if I am not willing?" Luo Mengchong frowned and asked softly. "If you are not willing, the Song family will take back all the property of the Luo family and expel us from Moon City." "What?" Luo Mengchong's expression changed. She clenched her fists so hard that her knuckles turned white. She never thought that the Song family would threaten her with such conditions. Confiscating all the property of the Luo family would mean that the entire family would have nothing, and it would be even more difficult than when they escaped from Taishao City. Nearly 1,000 people in the Luo family would be homeless. What would they rely on to maintain their basic survival? In particular, once the Mu family of Taishao City knew that the Luo family had lost the protection of its Song family, they would most likely come to add insult to injury. At that time, there would not even be a place for the Luo family in the vast Hundred Kingdoms region. This also meant that the hard work of the past 10 years would be in vain. More importantly, with the way that Song family acted, it was hard to imagine what kind of means they would use to restrict Luo Mengchang's growth in the future. The wheel of fate seemed to be spinning at a high speed. Luo Mengchang was at a loss. She was not a selfish person. It could be seen from how well she treated Chu Hen. Even though Chu Hen had already obtained a heavenly spirit sigil, Luo Mengchang still took the initiative to give him the doppelganger sigil. However, such a choice was often the most difficult one. After a long silence, Luo Mengchang slowly raised her head. Her long eyelashes fluttered gently. I want to say goodbye to him. Her calm voice was a little pale. Luo Qiong could not help but feel a pain in her heart. She then nodded gently. A series of light footsteps made the eyes of Chu Hen, who was waiting anxiously, light up. Everyone looked over and saw Luo Mengchang and Luo Qiong, the father and daughter pair, walking over one after another. Mengchang. Chu Hen quickly greeted them. Luo Mengchang smiled lightly and said, "What's wrong? We haven't seen each other for a while, and you already miss me." Looking at the other party, the depression in Chu Hen's heart suddenly dissipated. On the other side, Song Yuanjia sneered and looked at Luo Qiong with interest. "Luo family head, how did the conversation go?" There was no respect in his frivolous words. Although the Luo family was one of the 8 great families in Moonin City, in the eyes of the Song family, the Luo family was just a servant with no status. Luo Qiong did not say anything. She just looked at Luo Mengchang and Chu Hen with a complicated expression. "Dad, wait here for a moment." "Okay," Luo Qiong replied. After saying that, Luo Mengchang took Chu Hen's hand and walked away. The stream was gurgling and the river was flowing. A cheerful stream flowed through the valley. Flowers and plants were blooming beside the stream. A lone butterfly was jumping among the flowers as if it was looking for a lost companion. On a long stone slab on the shore, 2 people sat next to each other. Luo Mengchang rested her head on Chu Hen's shoulder. Her right hand was interlocked with Chu Hen's palm. Her left hand was facing the sky. Her white and slender fingers were as beautiful as jade under the sunlight. Luo Mengchang swung her little hand quietly like a playful girl next door. "Don't you have something to say to me? Why are you just playing by yourself?" Chu Hen smiled gently. Luo Mengchang put down her left hand and moved her head away from Chu Hen's shoulder. Chu Hen tilted his head and looked at her. Her beautiful face was reflected in his dark eyes. That. Luo Mengchang bit her red lips and said softly, "I think I can't go sightseeing with you. I have to go back to Moonin City." "Why are you going back? Is there anything going on at home?" "Yes." "Then I will go back with you." "No need." Luo Mengchang shook her head. "You go your way, and I will go mine." Chu Hen did not understand. At the same time, he felt a little uneasy. He stared at Luo Mengchang's evasive eyes. What the hell happened? Chu Hen frowned slightly. His eyes were like torches. Chapter 542. A yellowish leaf left a branch of the big tree under the gentle breeze. It landed lightly on the surface of the stream like a butterfly dancing, creating a circle of subtle ripples. "I'm getting married." Luo Mengchang no longer avoided Chu Hen's gaze. Her red lips parted slightly, and her tone sounded a little indifferent, giving off a feeling of freedom. Chu Hen was obviously stunned for a moment. He stared blankly at the other party's big, limpid eyes. Then Chu Hen smiled and said, "With me?" "Sure. I agree to your proposal." Luo Mengchang also smiled, but her smile was a little dry. She shook her head gently. "I'm sorry." Gentle ripples rippled in Luo Mengchang's eyes, like a faint blossoming of 100 flowers of sadness. Chu Hen's heart trembled slightly, but he still forced a smile and said, "Haha, looks like it's not me. May I ask who is so lucky to receive Miss Luo Mengchang's pity?" Luo Mengchong also shook her head, and then gently said a few words, Song Yujie. Song Yujie. Regarding this name, Chu Hen did not know how many times he had heard it in the past few months. He never thought that a person he had never met would become a stumbling block for him. Chu Hen was silent and did not ask any more questions. Previously at the Heavenly Sword Pavilion, Chu Hen already knew about the changes and experiences of the Luo family when they moved from Taishao City to Moon Inn City. Chu Hen could basically guess the purpose of Luo Qiong's visit, and he could also guess the content of the conversation between the two just now. Can we not leave? The two of them stared at each other in silence, with each other in their eyes. At this moment, Luo Mengchong leaned forward slightly. Chu Hen only felt a wisp of fresh fragrance, and then his mouth was covered by soft lips. Chu Hen's heart trembled. His arms wrapped around Luo Mengchong's slender waist, and he gently sucked on her cherry-like lips. It was warm and fragrant. Luo Mengchong leaned into Chu Hen's arms and took the initiative to cater to Chu Hen. Their smooth and nimble tongues intertwined with each other, sometimes gentle, sometimes affectionate. Soon, Luo Mengchong let go of Chu Hen's shoulder. Their eyes met, and they could feel each other's breathing. May you be safe and have a peaceful life. If we don't meet again, let us forget each other in Jianghu. Luo Mengchong finished her words softly and with great difficulty. Then, without waiting for Chu Hen to ask her to stay, she got up and left in a hurry. It was just a moment ago, and now it was a snowstorm. Chu Hen stood rooted to the ground, staring blankly at the beautiful figure going further and further away. Luo Mengchong did not look back, and soon disappeared from Chu Hen's sight. That fairy-like figure seemed to have left a mark in Chu Hen's heart. Once touched, it would be beautiful yet sad. Father, let's go. Hurrying back to Luo Qiong, Luo Mengchong tried to look very calm, but anyone could see that she was like a little girl who had lost something important. This was an unconcealable disappointment. Luo Qiong just sighed. There were two scenes in this world that people could not bear to see. One was the old master of the Luo family, Luo Qiong's father, Luo Yibai, who was unwilling before his death. I must take back Taishao City. I must take back Taishao, sword. The other was Luo Mengchong forcing a smile and pretending to be indifferent. Luo Qiong could only comfort herself. Song Yujie could be called the #1 genius in the prefecture region, so it was not a grievance for Shang to marry him. On the other side, Song Yujie and the others all laughed mockingly. Hey, I really want to see what expression that guy has now. What else can he have? He looks like a dead fish. Let's go back to Moon Inn City. The group gradually walked away, and the young figure did not chase after them. Luo Mengchong's heart was filled with a trace of relief and sadness. If Chu Hen had really chased after them, she did not know if she could still harden her heart. Fortunately, Chu Hen did not appear. The gurgling water was still brisk, but the air seemed to be a bit cool. Chu Hen quietly stood where he was, not moving at all, as if he was a wooden man. Come out. Stop hiding, Chu Hen said coldly. Bang. Luchi, why did you push me? I didn't push you. It was Sister Jishu. Huashu, I didn't push you. I was playing chess. It has nothing to do with me. It was Chi Tong who stepped on my foot. Damn, beauties, don't blame it on me. I'm so far away from you. Along with a burst of noise, a few familiar figures swayed out of the forest. They were none other than Fu Qin, Nongqi, Jishu, Huashue, Lu Qi from the Misty Wind Dynasty, and Chi Tong from the Giant Rock Dynasty who had disappeared for a few months. The six of them followed Chu Hen to the Thousand Cranes sect, but because of Chu Hen's departure, they also left one after another. Qin, Qi, Shu, and Hua's purpose was to bring Chu Hen back to Mount Kunliu to take over as the sect master. Lu Qi and Chi Tong accompanied them to search for Chu Hen because he had saved their lives. For them, it was not difficult to find Chu Hen. After all, Nongqi's powerful perception was something that even the sect master of Mount Kunliu, Gong Yangyu, could not do anything to her. Are you really not going to chase after him? If you don't, he will really leave. Huashue carefully walked to Chu Hen's side, her big eyes moving slightly, afraid that Chu Hen would get angry. What does it have to do with you? Chu Hen's cold gaze frightened Huashua. She shrunk her neck, stuck out her tongue, and hurriedly retreated. Nongqi and Jishu also shook their heads at Huashua, indicating that she should not speak carelessly. Then, Chu Hen did not say another word, turned around, and left alone. Seeing that he was about to leave, Huashua shouted again, "Hey, where are you going? We've been looking for you for a few months." Stop shouting. Fu Qin stepped forward to stop her. As the leader of the small group, Fu Qin not only had the highest cultivation, but even her thoughts were calmer than the other three. She looked in the direction that Chu Hen left, shook her head, and said, "Let him calm down alone." In the blink of an eye, 3 days passed. The departure of the major sects caused the area to become much quieter. The Heavenly Sword Pavilion's mountain gate was still shrouded in a layer of mist, and a huge semicircle of blue light enveloped the Sword Pavilion's inner area, making it difficult to detect. Halfway up one of the peaks, a few young men and women seemed to be slightly bored. "It's so boring. You guys stay here. Lu Qi, let's go play." Huashue threw away 2 pebbles casually, and then winked at Lu Qi not far away. Lu Qi glanced at the top of the mountain, and then shook his head. It seemed that he was not too interested. Jishu not far away said, "Huashue, if you have nothing to do, you can strengthen the street tree. You've just become a spiritual tattooist not long ago, and Reiki energy is too superficial. You should spend more time on cultivation." "Okay." Huashue pouted her little mouth, showing a reluctant look. "Someone is coming." At this moment, Nongqi suddenly stood up, looking at a certain direction in the sky. "Oh, who is it?" Everyone's faces were solemn. "Don't be nervous. It's Miss Shilon." Shilon? They were stunned. How did she know that they were here? Soon, a young and beautiful figure appeared in front of them. With beautiful long purple hair, it was Shilon, the beauty of dusk. "Miss Shilon, you're here." Shilon landed in a flash and smiled at them. Shilon had heard about the abilities of Qin, Qi, Shu, and Hua from Chu Hen. Qin had the strongest cultivation strength and was responsible for protecting everyone. Nongqi had the strongest perception and was good at tracking. Jishu was a spiritual tattooist with profound knowledge and knew all kinds of arrays and rune patterns. Huashue was a spiritual tattooist in the field of elixir making, and she was responsible for everyone's safety and medical care. Although she didn't know where they had been these months, Shilon was happy to see everyone again. "Miss Shilon, how come you're here?" Qitung asked. "I sensed Chu Hen's aura, so I came to have a look." Shilon nodded with a trace of solemnity in her beautiful eyes. "The people of Shura sect are hunting people of our Thousand Crane sect, and the first elder ordered us to scatter and retreat. I was afraid that they would do something bad to Chu Hen, so I left a few days later." "I see. Sister Shilon is so good to Chu Hen. You should be together, although Luo Mengchong is also very beautiful," Huashue said casually. "Huashue, don't talk nonsense." Fu Qin stopped her in a low voice. "I'm not talking nonsense. Anyway, she left and is going to marry someone else." "What are you talking about? Who left?" Shilon was a little confused. They looked at each other and didn't know what to say. Under Shilan's questioning, they told Shilon what they had seen. However, they didn't know why Luo Mengchong left and why she went back. Shilon frowned slightly and was slightly confused. Luo Mengchong was obedient and cute. She didn't look like a heartless person. There were most likely other reasons. "I'll go see him." Immediately, Shilon went to the top of the mountain alone. At the top of the mountain, Chu Hen sat on a big rock with his hands on his knees. He crossed his fingers against his lips and looked at the magnificent world in front of him with a pair of deep eyes. The wind at the top of the mountain was very strong. His long hair and clothes swayed in the wind. His increasingly mature face was as firm as a rock, with distinct edges and corners. The competition that day was very exciting. The soft voice was as intimate as drizzle. Shilon sat next to Chu Hen. Her every movement seemed particularly gentle. "I'm very pleased to have a disciple like you." Chu Hen didn't speak, as if he didn't hear it. "Do you mind if I sit with you for a while?" Shilon smiled. "I can see that you like her very much. I can also see that she is also very attached to you. I feel sorry for you. Chu Hen finally reacted and said in a low voice, Teacher, you don't have to enlighten me. I know what to do. Shilon raised her eyebrows slightly, and a little surprise flashed on her face. Chu Hen took a deep breath. His bright eyes were like the stars in the sky. An invisible, domineering aura arose spontaneously. He stood up like a king looking down on the mountains and rivers. Chapter 543. Light and mountain breeze blowing head-on like gauze brushing the face. Standing on the rock on the peak, Chu Hen emitted an invisible, domineering aura. Don't be sneaky anymore, come out. Chu Hen slightly turned his body and said, Ouch, Lu Qi, you stepped on my foot again. Don't frame us. Hua Xue, it was Qi Tong who stepped on it. Damn you. Are you done? It was you two who peeped. Who's peeking? We're looking at it openly. Yeah. They walked toward Chu Hen and Shilon noisily. Hua Xue gave a thumbs up secretly and said, Sister Shilon is awesome. She didn't talk to us like a block of wood for 3 days before you came. Shilon shook her head with a smile and stood up, looking back at Chu Hen with her beautiful eyes. I thought you would find me before the sword code competition, Chu Hen said casually. They looked at each other, and Hua Xue rolled her eyes discontentedly. It could have been possible, but senior sister Jishu and I had something to deal with, so we were delayed. It's because you became a spiritual tattooist. Yeah, how do you know? Wait, your Reiki energy intensity seems to be... Wow, you also became a spiritual tattooist? Hua Xue was startled. She widened her eyes and looked astonished. Fu Qin, Nongqi, and the others were also surprised. They remembered that Chu Hen was only a 7th-level advanced spiritual tattooist before they separated from each other in the Thousand Crane sect. In just a few months, he had reached the realm of spiritual tattooist, which was amazing. However, they didn't know that Chu Hen had become a 9th-level advanced spiritual tattooist when he devoured the Beast King essence of the white-scaled Serpent Emperor and the sweet soul fluid in the sealed steel in the jungle of Mount Mang. After that, he spent more than 20 days in the Heavenly Sword Pavilion setting up the twin Chaos Spirit formation, completing a breakthrough in both directions, while making the cultivation of martial arts step into the 4th rank of Void-Breaking Realm. The level of Reiki energy also entered the realm of spiritual tattooist. Did you eat some miraculous elixir? Even young Master Xue lost to you. Speaking of which, the few of us had to kneel to watch the last battle. Qi Ting shook his head with a complicated smile. Chu Hen raised an eyebrow. Oh, you guys arrived at that time? Lu Qi nodded, glanced at Fu Qin, and said, We arrived on the day of the Sword Scripture Grand Meeting, but the situation was too chaotic, so Big Sister Fu Qin asked us to watch the battle in secret and come look for you after the Grand Meeting ended. But we never expected that such an unexpected event would occur in the Heavenly Sword Pavilion. At the mention of this matter, Chu Hen's eyes could not help but turn slightly cold. Qingning's eyes flashed with a cold light. When do you plan to return to the Kunliu school with us? Fu Qin asked, his tone still as flat as before. Not now. Chu Hen refused flatly. They stopped talking. After all, if Chu Hen did not leave, the 4 of them could not forcibly kidnap him, not to mention that Shilon was on Chu Hen's side. I want to ask you for a favor, Chu Hen suddenly said, his eyes falling on Lu Qi and Qi Tong. Oh, ask us for a favor? The two were obviously stunned. Then Qi Tong raised his head and said, Say it. As long as I, Qi Tong, can do it, I will do it without hesitation. Me too, Lu Qi echoed. Both Lu Qi and Qi Tong were indebted to Chu Hen. The former was saved by Chu Hen in the land of Demon, sealing on the Myriad Beasts Ridge. Qi Tong was also saved by Chu Hen when he was in a life-death ring with someone in the Thousand Crane sect. Thinking back to the 6 Nations struggle and Heaven List battle in the Saint Star Dynasty, they were opponents. Now, they had become friends. Chu Hen first said to Lu Qi, I want to borrow 20,000 elite troops from the Windy Mist Dynasty. Borrow troops? Everyone was stunned. Before Lu Qi could ask, Chu Hen said to Qi Tong, I want to borrow 5 million high-grade origin crystal stones from you. 5 million high-grade origin crystal stones. According to the exchange rate of 100, it was 500 million mid-grade origin crystal stones. If it was in the past, this was definitely an astronomical figure that Chu Hen did not even dare to dream of. After all, when he was in Flaming Rain City, Chu Hen could only obtain 2 to 3 mid-grade origin crystal stones a month. One could easily imagine the difference. Gasp! Chiton took a deep breath. He hesitated for a moment before he nodded. Leave it to me. Naturally, Chiton could not afford 5 million high-grade origin crystal stones. However, he was backed by the Great Rock Dynasty's imperial family. To the imperial family, 500 million mid-grade origin crystal stones was not an exaggeration. Naturally, the prerequisite was if the other party was willing to fork out the money. What do you want the troops for? Lu Qi asked curiously. You'll find out. Can you get them? It should not be a big problem, but I need to get Her Majesty Misty Wind's commander seal first. Misty Wind Empress was the only female ruler of the 6 dynasties, and Lu Qi was her personal disciple. It wouldn't be hard for her to mobilize 20,000 soldiers. Instructor, I need you to go to the Thousand Crane sect. Chu Hen looked at Shilon and said. Go ahead. Shilon opened her red lips and said. Help me invite Absolute Array Yin Hanlu. Yin Hanlu? Shilon looked surprised. You need a spiritual tattoo master? Chu Hen nodded. That's right. And should we help? Hua Shui asked immediately. Chu Hen glanced at Fu Qin, who was expressionless, and then answered, Yes, if you want. By the way, what do you want to do? Fu Qin said in a low voice. Chu Hen's eyelids twitched. He raised his hand and flicked his sleeve, pointing at the vast horizon in front of him. His imposing manner was like a rainbow. Take down Taishao City. What? The expressions of the few of them changed drastically. Crazy, this was definitely crazy. No matter how weak Taishao City was, it was still a second-rate force. The Mu clan had many experts, and apart from a few first-rate clans and sects, no one dared to provoke the Mu clan. With a mere army of 20,000, they would be sending themselves to their deaths. The only outcome would be a crushing defeat. Chu Hen, do you really want to do this? Even if we send all the troops of the Misty Wind Dynasty, we won't be able to take down Taishao City. It's impossible. Lu Qi tried to persuade him. However, Chu Hen's eyes contain a strong, domineering aura and unswerving confidence. I'll return all the 20,000 troops I borrowed from you. If even one is missing, you can do whatever you want of me, Chu Hen. That's not what I mean, Lu Qi argued. If you trust me, then mobilize the troops immediately. Chu Hen didn't explain anything else. His eyes became deep, and his lips moved slightly. He murmured softly, I don't have much time left. Lu Qi wanted to say something, but hesitated. In the end, he didn't say anything. Shilon stared at the young man in front of her. She seemed to be in a daze. At this moment, she finally understood what gift Chu Hen was going to give her. However, in everyone's eyes, this was a battle they would definitely lose. They didn't even have to try, unless Qi Zhang, the sect master of the Thousand Crane sect, personally intervened. However, the Thousand Crane sect had no grudges with Taishao City in the past, and they had to consider the powerful factor of the Shura sect. Therefore, it was hard to ask Qi Zhang for help. Chapter 544. Ling City. This was a bustling, medium-sized city. It was located more than 200 kilometers southwest of Taishao City. It could be considered the largest neighboring city around Taishao City in an antique tea house. For women and a man sat around a square table. There were a few plates of pastries and a pot of steaming hot tea on the table. Oh, it's delicious. The tea is delicious too. You guys should eat some too. Hua Shui clutched her oily little hands and stuffed the pastries into her mouth as she mumbled indistinctly. Jishu and Nongqi shook their heads helplessly. They jokingly wondered if this girl was the reincarnation of a hungry ghost. Her appetite was always so good no matter what. Do you really want to do this? Fu Qin turned her gaze to the young figure sitting on the inner side. At this moment, Chu Hen was carefully reading a map on the table. The coordinates on the map were very detailed. It was a detailed map of Taishao City. This was bought by Chu Hen at a shop half an hour ago. Yes. Chu Hen replied softly. He did not even raise his head. Fu Qin could not help but find it funny. She replied coldly, Don't you think this is a waste of time? If you want to take down Taishao City, there's only one way, and that's to return to Kunliu's sect with us. After you take over as sect leader, you can do whatever you want. I don't have that much time. Chu Hen's voice was still indifferent. What a joke. Fu Qin sneered disdainfully. She admitted that Chu Hen was very strong. Especially among his peers, he was even more outstanding. He had extremely high talent and cultivation base. However, the overall strength of the Mu clan of Taishao City was in the upper reaches of the second-rate clan. A power like this would at least have an Earth Profound Stage expert holding down the fort. This person alone was enough to wipe out the 20,000 troops that Chu Hen had borrowed. This was no different from throwing an egg against a stone. It was like a mantis trying to stop a chariot. It was completely suicidal. Previously, Fu Qin only thought that Chu Hen was agitated and impulsive, which was why he said such a ridiculous thing. To his surprise, Chu Hen really asked Shilan to go to the Thousand Crane faction to ask Yan Hanlu for help, asked Chi Tong to borrow 500 million mid-grade essence crystals from the Giant Rock Dynasty, and asked Lu Qi to borrow 20,000 soldiers from the Misty Wind Dynasty. Fu Qin and the others found it increasingly difficult to understand Chu Hen's actions. If I had known this would happen, I would have continued to pursue Sect Master Gonyang. Fu Qin said somewhat angrily. Jishu shook his head helplessly. Gonyang Yu had given the sect leader's command token and the blue ran sword to Chu Hen, which was tantamount to tying them together with him. In the absence of Gonyang Yu, they could only follow Chu Hen. I don't want to explain too much to you. Chu Hen finally raised his head. He looked at them and said, This matter has nothing to do with you. You can stay in the city and wait for me. If you believe me, please don't try to persuade me in the coming days. Make your choice, Chu Hen said after a pause. Fu Qin pursed her red lips and sighed softly. Do we have a choice? Jishu couldn't help but lower his head as he played chess. Hua Shui also stopped eating and drinking. It had been many years since they left the Kunliu sect, and they had run into obstacles everywhere. After going through untold hardships, they had finally found Gonyang Yu, but now their target had shifted to Chu Hen. They had thought that Chu Hen would be easier to deal with than Gonyang Yu. Who would have thought that Chu Hen's actions would make them even more helpless? Now that it was quiet, the chatter at the other tables was especially loud. I didn't expect the province's grand ceremony to be so chaotic this year. What a pity for the Heavenly Sword Pavilion. The Heavenly Sword Pavilion has nothing to do with us. Speaking of which, before the competition, I was quite optimistic about the geniuses of our Taishao City. I didn't expect them to lose so badly. That's right. I heard that one of Mu Yifeng's arms was blown up by that Chu Hen. Damn ruthless. I heard that Old Master Mu is furious and is already secretly searching for Chu Hen's whereabouts to take revenge. Are you serious? Isn't that a little inappropriate? In the arena battles, life and death are up to fate. Who cares if it's appropriate or not? Now that the major forces in the province are in such a mess, who has the time to care about this? That's true. The Heavenly Sword Pavilion has fallen, and without this hegemonic sect to keep them in check, the surrounding major forces will definitely become restless. It looks like this year is going to be an eventful one. The surrounding busybodies were all chatting excitedly, their wine cups clinking like a symphony of musical instruments. Chu Hen seemed not to hear them, still deep in thought as he looked at the map in front of him. Several days later, at night, Tenli Peak outside Ling City. The sky was dotted with stars, and the crescent moon was like a hook, sharp and domineering like a youth. Chu Hen stood at the edge of the cliff with his eyes closed, and a cold aura emanated from his body. The four girls, Qin, Qi, Shu, and Hua, stood quietly behind him, each in deep thought. They're here, Nongqi said in a low voice. Swoosh! As soon as she finished speaking, a few dazzling meteor-like beams of light shot across the sky, and a strong airflow surged. In the next instant, 7 or 8 young men and women landed steadily in front of Chu Hen and the others. It was none other than the members of the Thousand Cranes sect, led by Shilon. Compared to Chi Tung and Lu Chi, they were naturally the fastest. Chu Hen, Mentor, you're here. Chu Hen smiled and looked at the people around Shilon. Besides Yin Han Lu, even Hong Lian was here. Chu Hen was slightly surprised. He didn't expect that Shilon would actually invite so many spiritual tattooists, and all of them had already reached the realm of spiritual tattooist. Hee, junior brother Chu Hen, why did you summon us in such a hurry? Yin Hanlu walked up with a smile and said, Junior sister, Shilon has brought all the spiritual tattooists of our Thousand Crane sect for you. Chu Hen's heart warmed. He glanced at Shilon gratefully and cupped his hands at the others. Greetings, senior brothers and sisters. I, Chu Hen, will remember your kindness by coming to help me. Senior Chu Hen's words are too serious. A young man with a simple and honest appearance said. Speaking of which, if Senior had not blocked that Azure Sect's little brat Lang Li during the disciple examination, I'm afraid that I would have already lost my life under that thief's blade. As soon as I heard that Senior's sister Shalon wanted to help you, I agreed without even thinking about it. Chu Hen suddenly realized why this person looked familiar. He was the disciple from the hall that he had saved in passing. Chu Hen, let's cut the formalities. Hong Lian walked up and asked softly, Why did you summon us here? I heard from your teacher that it's because of Meng Chong. After Chu Hen killed Lang Li, the relationship between Hong Lian and Shilon had eased up a lot. The hatred between them had long since disappeared. Chu Hen nodded slightly and raised his eyelids. Everyone, I'll be straightforward. I want to take down Taishao City as soon as possible. What? Hearing this, the only word that popped up in everyone's mind was crazy. Did you say something wrong? Or did I hear you wrong? Everyone looked at Chu Hen in astonishment, while Shilon, who was standing to the side, did not have much of an expression on her face. Ha! Junior brother Chu Hen, your words are really shocking, Yin Hanlu said with a smile. Chu Hen was calm and composed as he calmly replied, You don't need to participate in the battle. You only need to help me set up the rune technique. Chu Hen's words caused everyone to be stunned once again. They didn't need to participate in the battle? Then who would go? At this moment, everyone looked at Chu Hen with strange gazes. They thought to themselves, what on earth was going on in this guy's head? If it weren't for the fact that Chu Hen had defeated the blood-young Master Shui, he in one fell swoop during the Sword Law Grand meet 10 days ago, everyone would have turned around and left without a second thought. It was simply a fool's dream for them to want to take down Taishao City with just a few of them. After a strange silence, Yin Hanlu was the first to ask, What do you need us to do? Chu Hen raised his eyelids, and he saw the determination in Yin Hanliu's eyes. Then, Red Lotus also slightly raised her eyebrows. Brat, I've said that if you dare to hurt Meng Chong, I won't spare you. Say it. How do you want us to help you? Then, the eyes of the other spiritual tattooists also became firm. Somehow, they seemed to see an invisible deterrent and domineering aura from Chu Hen, which made them willing to try to believe in him. The next day, Chi Tong came back. He also brought back 50 storage rings with him. Each ring contained 100,000 upper-grade primordial crystal stones, which was the reserve power of the Boulder dynasty's treasury. A few days later, Lu Chi also came to meet the others. She looked travel-worn due to the hurried journey back and forth. When she handed the commander's seal to Chu Hen, a comfortable smile appeared on her face. I've lived up to your expectations. Now 20,000 elite soldiers are stationed in the Black River Valley, 300 kilometers south of Taishao City, waiting for deployment. Thank you. Chu Hen nodded gratefully. 20,000 soldiers? Yin Han Lu and the others were both puzzled and surprised. Did Chu Hen intend to conquer Taishao City with these 20,000 soldiers? It was really hard to imagine. In the eyes of ordinary people, the army of a dynasty was indeed very powerful, but for a force like Taishao City, it was no threat at all. Despite their doubts, they still wanted to wait for Chu Hen to tell them his idea in person. The Black River Valley is steep, and it avoids the main road. It's a good place to hide, Chu Hen murmured. It doesn't matter. Many countries often train their troops in the wilderness. The Black River Valley is a deserted place, So people won't be suspicious, Lu Qi explained. Chu Hen nodded. Indeed, even if someone found the 20,000 soldiers of the Misty Wind Dynasty, they wouldn't associate them with Taishao City. Even if there were 200,000 soldiers, they wouldn't think they were here to deal with the Mu family of Taishao City. Chapter 545. Ku. The white mist of the morning reverberated with the cries of unknown birds. Before the sky was completely bright, the depths of the Black River Valley had already become lively. Lord Lu Qi, you're here? I'll immediately inform General Chang Qi. At the entrance of a newly built camp, a few armored soldiers holding sharp weapons respectfully saluted Lu Qi and led the group towards the camp. The camp was surrounded by fences made of sharp tree stumps, and sentries stood on 2 watchtowers that were dozens of meters high. Neatly dressed soldiers patrolled the surroundings, and the entire camp was filled with a solemn and dignified atmosphere. This army is one of the most elite lions of our Misty Wind Dynasty, called the Dragon Teeth Army. They have strict military discipline and are very disciplined. Lu Qi explained to Chu Hen and the group. Chu Hen nodded, indicating that he was listening. Soon, the curtain of the centermost tent was lifted, and a middle-aged general with a stocky build and a full beard strode out. Beside him were 2 deputy generals. They were also valiant and extraordinary, and had a rather elegant demeanor. General Chang Qi greets Lord Lu Qi. Chang Qi cupped his fists, knelt on one knee, and respectfully saluted. The 2 deputy generals beside him also did the same. General Chang, please rise, Lu Qi said. Thank you, Lord. The 3 stood up. Lu Qi raised his right hand, pointed at Chu Hen beside him, and said, General Chang, according to His Majesty's order, this young master Chu Hen holds the Dragon Teeth Army emblem. All of his orders are equivalent to His Majesty's orders. Oh, Chang Qi frowned slightly, and looked at Chu Hen with slight confusion. For a general like him who had fought countless battles, it was inevitable that he would be arrogant. If it wasn't for Lu Qi's special identity, he wouldn't have received the treatment of kneeling on one knee. Moreover, Chu Hen was young, and Chang Qi had never seen it before. If he had to completely listen to Chu Hen's orders, he would more or less be dissatisfied. Even though he was dissatisfied, Chang Ke still cupped his fists and went through the motions. General Chang Ke greets young Master Chu Hen. If young Master has any instructions, please don't hesitate to speak. Anyone could hear the slight ridicule in Chang Ke's tone. Chu Hen didn't get angry, only faintly smiling. I wouldn't dare to give you instructions, but I do need General Chang's help. Seeing that Chu Hen had admitted defeat, Chang Ke became even more arrogant. Ignoring Lu Qi's presence, he turned his body sideways and raised his head, ignoring Chu Hen. When Hua Shui saw this, she couldn't help but say, You're so untactful. Our family's Chu Hen was just being polite to you, but you're acting all high and mighty. The corners of Chang Ke's eyes narrowed, and he shouted coldly, little girl, you really don't know what to say. This general has roamed the battlefield for dozens of years, killed countless enemies, and destroyed thousands of cities. How could it be your turn to lecture me? You're awesome. You're amazing, okay? Why don't you rise with the wind and soar up 90,000 li? Hua Shui, don't be rude, Fu Qin shouted. Chang Ke frowned and asked in confusion, What do you mean? Hua Shui pouted, shook her head, and laughed mischievously. If you're so awesome, why don't you ascend to the heavens? You. Chang Ke was so angry that his face turned red, and smoke came out of his orifices. The others almost suffered internal injuries from holding back, and Yin Hanlu couldn't help but laugh. Little girl, you're really too cute. It's okay, just a little cute. Fu Qin and the others couldn't do anything about Hua Shui. Ever since this girl got together with Chu Hen, she became more and more out of control. However, Chu Hen didn't seem to care about this, and his emotions didn't change much. General Chang, this little girl is insensible, and I apologize. I hope the general is magnanimous and won't take it to heart, Chu Hen said calmly. Chang Ke's face was gloomy, but he couldn't do anything about it. He was a man, and it was indeed beneath his dignity to argue with a little girl. He could only vent his anger on Chu Hen and said unhappily, "If you have something to say, just say it. After this is over, we still have to return to the dynasty." Chu Hen nodded and said, "I wonder how many archers the Dragon Fang army has." Humph. Chang patted his chest and replied proudly, "My subordinates are all archers." "TSK, you're bragging," Hua Shui suddenly said. Hua Shui, you've misunderstood," Lu Qi hurriedly advised. Lu Qi immediately stopped him. "General Chang's soldiers are all well-rounded. They're proficient in fighting on the ground, on horseback, and in archery." Seeing Lu Qi praise him, Chang Ke's anger turned to joy, and a proud smile appeared on his face. "Really?" Hua Shui said doubtfully. "Humph. I won't argue with a little girl like you. Word or no proof. If you doubt me, I'll show you their archery skills." Hua Shui felt a little guilty, but Chu Hen raised his eyebrows slightly, raised his hand, and said, "That's good." A moment later, under Chang Ke's lead, the group arrived at the training field at the back of the camp. Deputy General Liu fined 10 people. Chang Ke's expression was that of true gold, not afraid of fire. Yes. Very quickly, Deputy General Liu found 10 soldiers. On the training field, 10 targets were laid out in a row. 10 soldiers with longbows in their hands and arrows on their backs stood 100 steps away. "Brothers, these friends want to see your archery skills. Perform well," Deputy General Liu shouted loudly. "Understood," the 10 answered in unison. Chu Hen, Shilan, Yanhan Lu, Lu Qi, and the others stood below the field, watching quietly. Arrows were drawn, and the bowstring was drawn, producing a deep ka sound. The 10 soldiers were as steady as mountains, and their postures were straight. Their sharp eyes were fixed on the targets in front of them. Their bows were like full moons, and their auras were awe-inspiring. Swoosh! In an instant, the air trembled slightly, and 10 arrows shot out at the same time. With a slight trembling sound, they all landed on the bullseye in the center of the target. "Good." The soldiers below the field cheered, and the faces of the 10 people were filled with pride. However, Chu Hen's expression was calm, without a ripple, as if he wasn't too surprised. Chang Ke saw this, and the corners of his eyes narrowed. He then gave Deputy General Liu a look, and the latter nodded, raised his arm, and shouted, "Retreat another 100 steps." Yes. The 10 soldiers retreated another 100 steps, which meant that they were 200 steps away from the target. This kind of distance was difficult for most soldiers, but they still had a card up their sleeve, and under Deputy General Liu's instructions, they drew their bows. Xiao! Accompanied by the rapid sound of the arrows breaking through the air, the 10 arrows left behind a series of afterimages, and once again landed firmly on the bullseye. "Ha ha, good." Chang Ke stroked the beard on his chin, but when he looked at Chu Hen again, he couldn't help but frown. He saw that Chu Hen was still expressionless and unmoved. This guy? Chapter 546. Retreat another 100 steps. Seeing that Chu Hen's face was still expressionless, Chang Ke clenched his teeth and yelled loudly. As soon as these words came out, the entire training field couldn't help but burst into an uproar. Even the 10 soldiers revealed a somewhat dignified expression as they faintly furrowed their brows. It was said that one could shoot a willow leaf from 100 steps away. This could already be considered an outstanding archer. A distance of 300 steps was a great test for an archer's strength and eyesight. A normal person's eyesight wouldn't even be able to clearly see the bullseye on the target, let alone hit it. The 10 soldiers withstood the pressure and retreated 300 steps away. Draw the bows. Under Deputy General Liu's command, everyone knocked the bowstring, and their sharp eyes were like a hawk's as they stared at the target in front of them. The entire training field fell into silence. All of the soldiers were so nervous that they didn't say a word. Even Chang Ke couldn't help but frown, his heart hanging in his throat. Crack! The top bowstring constantly stretched outwards, and the air rang with a slight tremble. The 10 soldiers began to release true inner force from their bodies. Threads of light emerged, covering their arms with an abnormally solemn expression. "Release the arrows." A cold and stern voice rang out, and with a whoosh sound, 10 sharp arrows shot out from the bowstring, leaving behind a series of afterimages in the air as they struck the target. Chi, 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 10 muffled sounds rang out in succession, and the 10 arrows firmly hit the target. More than half of them hit the bullseye, and the worst still hit within the 5th ring. This kind of result was absolutely worthy of being called proud. Good. Amazing. The audience cheered again and again, and all kinds of cheers continuously rang out. Chanko also let out a sigh of relief. At least he didn't lose face, and his performance could be considered stable. Not bad. Hua Shui, who had previously been bickering with Changku, also clapped her small hands in appreciation. However, Chu Hen narrowed his eyes and crossed his arms in front of him, a pensive expression on his face. What? Is young master Chu Hen still not satisfied? Changku was finally a little angry. This guy was clearly here to cause trouble. If you still think that we're not good enough, then you'd better find someone else. Everyone looked at Chu Hen. To be honest, no one knew what Chu Hen was doing. The strength and standard of the Dragon Teeth Army were indeed astonishing, but in the eyes of the experts of Taishao City, they were simply vulnerable. At this moment, Chu Hen took a step forward and waved his hand. A strong gust of wind stirred up in the training field. The sand and stones on the ground flew, and dust flew everywhere. Then the arrow on the target actually missed the target and fell to the ground due to the wind. What do you mean? Chanka shouted in a low voice. Chu Hen raised his eyelids and replied faintly. An arrow that can even be blown askew by the wind. It can be seen how poor its penetrative power is. I would like to ask General Changdi, can such an arrow still hurt people? You? Chang Ku's eyes turned cold, and he shouted sternly. I would like to ask which ordinary person can resist the damage of such an arrow. Chu Hen stared at him solemnly. Our opponents are not ordinary people. Similarly, if General Chang Ku's target has always been ordinary people, I am afraid that the Dragon Teeth Army will always be at this level. A dignified general was taught a lesson by Chu Hen, which made Chang Ku very angry. Then, Chu Hen suddenly walked to the side of one of the archers and said, Can you give me an arrow? The archer was stunned at first, because of Chu Hen's rudeness to Chang Ku. He wanted to refuse Chu Hen's request. But as soon as he saw Chu Hen's eyes, he couldn't help but take an arrow and hand it to him. Everyone looked at Chu Hen curiously. What on earth was he going to do? Buzz. The second after Chu Hen took the arrow, a strong flow of Reiki energy was released from his mud pill palace. The bright light pattern climbed to his fingertips and then instantly turned into a dozen strange talismans. The colorful talismans, like beautiful spiritual butterflies, hovered around Chu Hen's palm and then quickly arranged into a string of talismans. Under Chu Hen's control, the talismans were guided into the arrow. Yin Han Lu, Hong Lian, Ji Shu, Hua Shui, and the others were all spiritual tattooists, so they naturally knew that Chu Hen was arranging a tool pattern. But as to what kind of tool pattern it was, no one could tell. Is this the supreme tool pattern? Yin Hanlu murmured in a low voice, and then shook his head. There seems to be something wrong with some of the talismans. Jishu slightly frowned and pursed her red lips, seeming to be a little uncertain. In less than 2 seconds, Chu Hen withdrew the Reiki energy. The arrow in his hand didn't seem to have changed much except for a string of strange talismans. Then, Chu Hen handed the arrow back to the archer and said, "Try again." His indifferent tone and calm eyes exuded an irresistible aura. The archer took the arrow in his hand and then immediately drew the bowstring familiarly. Just like the previous 3 times, he pulled the bow into the shape of a full moon. Everyone's eyes were fixed on him. Release! Swish! Along with Chu Hen's voice, a beam of bright light suddenly burst out, and a powerful airwave swept across half of the training ground, stirring up a spiral airflow that rolled up the fallen leaves, sand, and stones on the ground. The arrow blossomed with a dazzling light, and when it hit the bullseye in the center of the target, it actually pierced through it as if it was a thin piece of paper. Then, with a muffled bang, the arrow directly pierced into the rock wall of a large mountain behind the training ground, leaving only a small round hole. What? This sudden scene caused the expressions of everyone present to change greatly. The archer who shot the arrow was dumbfounded, as if he was questioning his own life. Deputy General Liu hurriedly ran to the front of the rock wall and opened the corner of his eye to look into the round hole. After looking for a while, he blankly shook his head and said, "General, I can't see clearly. I estimate that the depth is at least 5 meters or more." Hiss! As soon as these words came out, the entire military camp sucked in a breath of cold air. Everyone's gaze toward Chu Hen had changed quite a bit. "I know. That's the wind spike talisman pattern," Ji Shu, who was deep in thought, suddenly blurted out. "What's the wind spike talisman pattern?" Senior sister Ji Shu, Hua Shui, asked curiously. "It's a special tool pattern specially designed for bows and arrows. When the arrow is moving, it can instantly increase its penetrating power by more than 1,000 times. Increase penetrating power by more than 1,000 times? Uproar. The entire audience was stunned once again. In this way, even the arrows shot by these ordinary archers were enough to threaten experts of the void-piercing stage. "I only know of an extreme kill tool pattern that increases the penetrating power of a bow and arrow. Is it any different from this wind spike tool pattern?" Yanhan Lu casually asked. Ji Shu slightly raised her delicate head and gently said, "It could be said that the wind spike is an upgraded version of the extreme kill. The extreme kill can at most increase the penetrating power by 500 times, while the wind spike can at least increase it by 800 times. However, the arrangement of the wind spike talisman pattern has been lost for a long time." When she said the last sentence, Ji Shu clearly lowered her voice. She looked at Chu Hen's calm face with confusion. How could he know such a profound technique of rune arrangement? Chu Hen didn't pay attention to the strange gazes of the crowd. He looked back at Chong Meng and said, "General Chong, how many arrows did you bring this time?" Chong Meng was stunned at first, but then he came back to his senses and his attitude changed rapidly. Reporting to young Master Chu Hen, "We brought a total of 50,000 arrows." 50,000? Chu Hen muttered to himself. "I'm afraid 50,000 is a little too little." "How many do you need, young master?" "I need at least 100,000 arrows." "Give me some time, and I can still drop 50,000 arrows," Chong Meng said in a low voice. "I'll have to trouble you." An hour later, in a spacious and bright tent, Chu Hen faced Yan Hanlu, Hong Lian, Ji Shu, Shilan, and the others. "First, I want to inscribe the wind spike tool pattern on all the arrows to increase the penetrating power and lethality of the arrows." Chu Hen's words were concise and clear. "So you want to teach us the method to set up the wind spike talisman pattern?" Yan Hanlu said with a smile. "Yes, that's not bad. We can learn the long-lost talisman technique by helping out here. It's not a loss at all." Chu Hen smiled lightly and continued to explain. "The wind spike talisman pattern requires a lot of energy, so we need to extract energy from origin crystal stones." Chu Hen casually took out a few high-grade origin crystal stones. The crystal source contained in 10 high-grade origin crystal stones can barely complete the wind spike talisman pattern with a penetrating power of around 1,000 times. 10 high-grade origin crystal stones were needed to complete one wind spike arrow. 100,000 arrows meant that he would need to spend 1 million high-grade origin crystal stones. This meant that 1/5 of the 5 million high-grade origin crystal stones Chu Hen borrowed from Qitong had been used up. Moreover, it was under the condition that there was no mistake. One had to admit that spirit tattoo masters were really prodigal. The wind spike talisman pattern requires 100 high-grade talismans and 32 spirit-grade talismans. Among the spirit-grade talismans, there are 3 that are more difficult to control. The first is the Daluo transposition rune. As soon as Chu Hen finished speaking, a gentle Reiki energy climbed up his fingertip and flowed like a golden flame before transforming into a rune that looked like a circle. Faint energy fluctuations emanated from the rune, and everyone could clearly feel that the airflow in the tent had become much more restless. Including Yan Hanlu, Hong Lian, Nongqi, Hua Xue, and the other spirit tattoo masters of the Thousand Crane sect looked at the rune with surprise. Chu Hen explained in detail the characteristics of the rune and the method to condense it. Everyone listened attentively. In next to no time, Yin Hanlu stretched out her hand, and a strand of bright silver light coiled around her fingertip. She flicked her finger lightly, and along with the lightly trembling airflow, a strange rune that seemed like colored glass appeared in front of everyone. "Wow, it's amazing!" Hua Xue exclaimed. Chu Hen nodded in praise. As one of the core disciples of the Thousand Crane sect and one of the 7 absolutes of heaven's geniuses, Yin Hanliu's talent was indeed shocking. Chapter 547. The Dragon Fong Barracks. After hearing that a few experts who could increase the penetrative power of their arrows by 1,000 times had arrived, the atmosphere in the barracks became much more restless than usual. Chu Hen didn't tell General Chang Ku what they were going to do. He only said that the enemy they were facing was very powerful, so they had to strengthen the overall quality of the army in the shortest time possible. After displaying the powerful abilities of the Wind Thorn Rune, Chu Hen taught Yin Hanlu, Ji Shu, and the other spirit tattoo masters how to arrange the rune. The people Xilan brought with her were the most talented and accomplished spirit tattoo masters of the Thousand Crane sect. With Chu Hen's detailed explanation, everyone quickly grasped the method of arranging the Wind Thorn Rune. Among them, the fastest were absolute leader Yin Hanlu and Ji Shu. The two of them only used less than 4 hours to successfully inscribe the Wind Thorn Tool rune on the arrows. On the second day, everyone began to get busy. Batch after batch of arrows were sent to the barracks. Then, everyone worked together to arrange and inscribe tool runes on the arrows. The ordinary arrows transformed into thorns with flowing golden patterns of light. Every soldier was amazed, their faces filled with excitement. The speed of the group was very fast. Especially towards the end, they became more and more skilled, almost as if they had it at their fingertips. In the first few days, they could only inscribe a few thousand arrows at most. Later on, it wouldn't be too much of a problem to inscribe the tool runes on 10,000 arrows a day. General Chang Ku would run to Chu Hen's tent every other day. He wondered if he could keep a batch of arrows for later use. If he could learn the method of arranging the Wind Thorn Tool rune, that would be perfect. Inside the spacious and bright tent, Yin Hanlu, Hong Lian, Ji Shu, and the others all had a string of resplendent runes hovering around their fingertips. The beautiful runes were like graceful spirit butterflies dancing in the air. Regardless of whether it was day or night, the entire tent was filled with splendor. 2 boxes of arrows were placed in front of each person. The right one was picked up, and the left one was put down. Every time an arrow was inscribed with a tool rune, it was as if it had been baptized by holy light. It glowed and emitted a piercingly cold aura. I'm a little tired," Hua Xue yawned and stretched her shoulders deeply. She pouted her little mouth with a bored expression. That damned fellow. He left us here to help him make arrows while he ran off to God knows where. I really want to beat him to death. Hee, you're always so troublesome. No one else is complaining. Come, refine this box of arrows. Lu Qi smirked as he moved the box full of arrows in front of Hua Xue. Are you trying to tire me to death? There's no other way. I'm not a tattoo artist. Humph. Hua Xue was so angry that she could only glare. No one had a break these days. Even Xilan, Qi Teng, Fu Qin, and others were helping out with other trivial matters. However, Chu Hen's figure had disappeared since yesterday, and he had not appeared until this morning. Sister Xilan, where's your Chu Hen? I have no idea. Xilan arranged the arrows in front of her as she replied. He must have gone somewhere to have fun. Forget about him. I need a rest too. I'm so tired. After that, Hua Xue stood up and ran out of the tent. However, when she reached the door, she bumped into someone. Who is it? Is it fun to have eyes? Hua Xue touched her head and scolded. Then, she took a closer look. The person in front of her was none other than Chu Hen, who had been missing for a day. You? Hua Xue looked at Chu Hen weakly like a kitten who was caught stealing food. Why are you back? I came to look for you, Chu Hen answered. Look for me? Hua Xue's big eyes turned uneasily. Why? I didn't slack off. Wait, why should I slack off? Why should I be afraid of you? Hua Shue suddenly became smart. It seemed that she was working for Chu Hen for free. She didn't need to be afraid of him at all. Come with me. After saying that, Chu Hen casually dragged Hua Shue away, beside a stream in the Black River Valley. At the end of the wide stream was a silver waterfall. The flowers and grass were in full bloom. The green grass was full of vitality. Why are you looking for me alone? Hua Shue looked at him weakly. Then her eyes brightened. Are you going to give me a reward? Chu Hen was confused. What are you talking about? Aren't you going to give me a reward? Then why are you looking for me? Naturally, I have something to ask of you. What is it? Can't you look for them? Hua Shue had a bad feeling. I can only look for you. No one else can do it. Receiving Chu Hen's slightly hot gaze, Hua Shue's heartbeat sped up. Her face turned red. So I'm so special. Then what is it? Alchemy. They're not tattoo masters in the field of alchemy. I can only look for you to do alchemy. As soon as he said that, the discomfort on Hua Shue's body disappeared. At that moment, she only had the urge to strangle Chu Hen to death. Do you know how to make dragon power pill? Asked Chu Hen. Hua Shue nodded blankly. Then, she quickly shook her head. I don't. Chu Hen raised his eyebrows. It's a very simple kind. It's a pill that can increase one's physique strength by 10 times. I know. You don't have to explain so much to me. It's just a dragon power pill that increases one's strength after eating it. It's very simple. So you know how to? No. Hua Shue quickly covered her mouth and asked innocently, What did I say just now? Chu Hen was annoyed and amused at the same time. All right, stop playing. I'm being serious. I'm being serious too. I'm not going to be your slave. You asked me to do this and that every day. Do I owe you anything? As long as you help me with alchemy, I'll promise you anything in the future. Really? Hua Shue's eyes brightened. Yes. Chu Hen nodded. Hua Shue curled her lips in satisfaction and asked, What do you want the dragon power pill for? For the soldiers to eat? Chu Hen didn't deny it. Yes. The dragon power pill can increase the strength of the fleshly body by 10 times. In addition to the wind-piercing tool pattern's 1,000 times piercing power. In this way, the lethality of an arrow shot out is 10,000 times the usual. This kind of strength is enough to break the defense of a void-piercing stage expert. It won't work. Hua Shue shook her head. The medicinal effect of the dragon power pill is too overbearing. The physique of an ordinary person can't withstand the impact of the medicinal effect at all. I'm afraid that the moment the soldiers eat the dragon power pill, their blood vessels would burst and they would die in the next second. Even though the soldiers of the Dragon Fong army were all strong and robust, compared to the disciples that came from sects, they seemed rather weak. An ordinary body would find it hard to withstand the impact of the dragon power pill. However, Chu Hen shook his head with a smile. It's fine. I'll teach you to slightly alter the steps of alchemy. Oh, this is the wind bell flower. With a flick of Chu Hen's palm, a plant that was shaped like a bell appeared in his hand. If you add the wind bell flower and a few other supplementary medicinal ingredients, it can greatly reduce the risk. You really know a lot, Hua Shue said in surprise. Chu Hen smiled. There's no time to lose. Try refining a pot of dragon power pill first. After he finished speaking, Chu Hen took out a few dozen sets of medicinal ingredients. Hua Shue's willow-shaped eyebrows lightly raised. So the reason he disappeared for a day was to prepare these medicinal ingredients. It looked like in the entire military camp, the only person who wouldn't slack off was Chu Hen himself. I'll first teach you how to alter those runes. Chu Hen started to explain in detail, word by word. Around half an hour later, Chu Hen looked somewhat helplessly at Hua Shue, who had her eyelids heavy and her head drooped. Forget it. You go rest first. Hua Shue stiffly raised her face. Are you done? Yes. That's good. I'll start refining the pill. I thought it was something profound. It turns out it's that simple. Just watch from the side. I'll be done in less than half an hour. Half an hour? Chu Hen was stunned. This girl couldn't be bragging, right? Based on his understanding, the dragon power pill would require at least 4 hours to be completed. Moreover, it would require a master-level figure. As he was thinking, He saw Hua Shui raise her small hand. A white light flashed, followed by a loud clang. A three-legged heavy cauldron landed firmly on the grass. This is... Shu Hen's eyes brightened. He saw that this heavy cauldron was about 2 meters tall. Its entire body was dark green in color. The body of the cauldron was engraved with ancient beast patterns. The beast pattern was a green snake with 2 wings. The fine protruding scales were very delicate. This is the Green Child Cauldron, a sacred weapon. Hua Shui said proudly as she shook her head. Shu Hen nodded secretly. This cauldron named Green Child Cauldron didn't seem to have anything special on the outside. However, it contained a particularly vigorous and scorching aura. Observing it from a close distance, he could faintly see the fluorescent light attached to the cauldron's body. Step back, Hua Shui said. Shu Hen did as he was told and stepped back to the side. Immediately after, a gentle but solid Reiki energy was released from Hua Shui's body. The radiance that was like a spiritual fountain wrapped around the Green Child Cauldron. Buzz, buzz. A soft humming sound was heard. In an instant, the Green Child Cauldron's body emitted a bright brilliance. The flying snake pattern on the cauldron's body seemed to have come alive. It turned into a flowing shadow and rotated around the cauldron. Zone. Chapter 548. Buzz, buzz. The area behind the military camp was empty. Shu Hen stood about 7 to 8 meters behind Hua Shui, looking at the scene in front of him with surprise. Hua Shui sat upright on the ground. Her cute little face was more solemn than usual. Endless Reiki energy spread out from Hua Shui's Niwen Palace and surged toward the Akiji sacred cauldron in front of her. The sacred cauldron floated in midair. Its entire body was wrapped in a scorching red flame. The scorching airwaves spread in all directions. From afar, it looked like a fireball. Buzz, buzz. A green light that looked like a snake wrapped around the Akiji cauldron, turning left and right like a guardian spirit beast. In the air around the Akiji cauldron, there were hundreds of runes that were shining brightly. The runes were intertwined with each other, like a corner of the endless starry sky. It was dazzling and dazzling. Hua Shui calmly controlled the heat under the cauldron and calmly changed the rune's arrangement. The temperature within a radius of 100 meters was a little hot. Not long after, Shu Hen could smell the faint fragrance of elixirs. Looking at Hua Shui's skillful and relaxed manner, Shu Hen was a little surprised. He did not expect her to have such a high level of attainment in elixir refining at such a young age, especially when she controlled the sacred tool Akiji cauldron with ease. It was really praiseworthy. I have underestimated this girl. Shu Hen murmured softly. He could not help but wonder what kind of sect the Kunliu faction was. How could it cultivate such an outstanding group like zither, chess, calligraphy, and painting? Buzz, buzz. Just as Shu Hen was pondering, a strong wave of heat suddenly swept across. Then, Hua Shui suddenly accelerated the rhythm of controlling the Reiki energy. Under her control, the runes that were dancing in the sky were like spiritual butterflies that had fled their nests. They quickly swarmed toward the Akiji cauldron. The Akiji cauldron also emitted a dazzling radiance like the sun. The runes passed through the bright green radiance and directly merged into the interior of the sacred cauldron. Every step was steady and orderly. Withdraw. Hua Shuin opened her mouth slightly and flicked her fingers. In an instant, the various light patterns that enveloped the Green Child Cauldron rapidly converged together, and the flames that enveloped the body of the cauldron also rapidly melted. With a muffled bang, the sacred cauldron gently fell to the ground. He was as steady as a mountain. All right, less than half an hour. Hua Shui clapped her hands and turned around to blink at Shu Hen. So fast. Shu Hen's face was filled with surprise. What else? This is considered slow. I don't even want to refine this kind of candy. Okay? Hua Shui said proudly. Shu Hen smiled. I wonder how effective it is. As long as your improvement method is correct, there won't be any problems. There should be no mistake. The refining method of the Dragon Power Pill was left behind by the Lei Huan Patriarch of St. Bell City. All the knowledge that Chu Hen had as a tattoo master also came from Lei Huan. Let's open it and take a look. Then, Hua Shui waved her hand, and the lid of the cauldron floated up. Along with a thick medicinal pill fragrance, more than 100 dark red pills flew out. Hua Shui casually took out a medium-sized jade bottle. With a thought, she wrapped those medicinal pills with Reiki energy and put them into the bottle. 123 pills. If we auction them, we can sell them for hundreds of thousands of high-grade, primordial crystals. Hua Shui tossed the jade bottle to Chu Hen. Chu Hen received the bottle. The bottle was a little hot to the touch, and the rich fragrance caused one's mind to shake. This dragon power pill is only useful for people below the void-piercing realm. For us, it doesn't have any effect, Hua Shui added. Chu Hen nodded, indicating that he understood. A moment later, in the military training field. Wow! Amidst the gasps of astonishment, a young soldier easily drew a heavy bow weighing over 300 kilograms. This guy's strength? Normally, it would not be easy for the other party to lift this heavy bow. But now, under the gazes of Chong Ku, Deputy General Liu, Chi Tung, Lu Qi, and the others, the bowstring quickly turned into a full moon shape. An arrow surrounded by a faint golden glow was placed on the bowstring, emitting a sharp aura. Release the arrow. The bowstring made a light sound, and a beam of light directly shot out. Tearing the air and splitting the air, the momentum was astonishing. A powerful wave of air slanted upwards, and the arrow transformed into a beam of light that soared into the sky. The arrow flew for 2 miles and sank into the mountain wall of a mountain that was dozens of meters wide. It pierced through and flew out from the back. Damn. The appearance of this scene caused all the soldiers in the military camp to jump in fright. Even Chong, whose eyes widened in shock. The soldier who released the arrow stood dumbfounded on the spot, staring at his own hands with a face full of disbelief. Did he shoot that arrow just now? Why did this feel like a dream? Chu Hen, who stood at the side, nodded thoughtfully. That arrow just now was the effect of the dragon power pill that the other party consumed. The power and range of the heavy bow was already great. The dragon power pill increased the power by 10 times, and the wind thorn tool pattern increased the penetrative power of the arrow by 1,000 times. Compared to the original foundation, it increased the lethality by more than 10,000 times. The power of that arrow was enough to threaten a void-piercing realm expert. Of course, a void-piercing realm expert would not stand still and let you be a target, especially in terms of speed. A void-piercing realm expert could kill these people in an instant. So, this was only the first step for Chu Hen. Young Master Chu Hen, you're too amazing. Chong Ku walked to Chu Hen's side with a face full of smiles. There's me too. I refined this dragon power pill. Hua Shui hurriedly took credit, showing off like a little girl. Chu Hen smiled and shook his head, then said, General Chong, try to equip the bows and arrows of the soldiers with heavy and powerful bows. Does everyone need it? Changke asked. Yes. No way. Are you trying to tire me to death? Hua Shui scolded with extreme dissatisfaction. Everyone was equipped with a powerful heavy bow. In other words, all the soldiers in the Dragon Teeth Army needed to consume the dragon power pill. 20,000 soldiers. 1 pill for each person would be 20,000 pills. This was definitely a huge project. You have the Green Child Cauldron. What are you afraid of? Chu Hen replied. You're still saying it's reasonable, aren't you? I don't want to be squeezed dry by you. Hua Shui pouted, her face full of displeasure. Although she had the Green Child Cauldron, according to the output of 100 dragon power pills per cauldron, she would need to refine it 200 times. For Hua Shui, who was not very diligent, this was a kind of torture. You're not helping me? Chu Hen smiled mischievously. No. Are you sure? I'm sure. I'm the leader of Mount Kunliu. If you don't listen to the leader's orders, I'll expel you from mountain. So the conversation ended. After Hua Shui cursed Chu Hen hundreds of times in her heart, she took out the Green Child Cauldron and went to the back of the mountain. Chapter 549. Phew, I've finally finished engraving these damned wind thorn tool markings. I'm really exhausted. Yeah, I haven't seen the sun outside for more than 10 days. This is the first time I felt the air outside the tent is so fresh. After more than 10 days of hard work, the 100,000 ordinary arrows were all engraved with tool markings and refined into wind thorn arrows that had a penetrative power 1,000 times stronger than before. Yin Hanlu, Hong Lian, Nongqi, and the others walked out of the tent one after another and stretched their stiff limbs. Boom! However, it was also at this moment that the ground suddenly trembled. Two loud bangs suddenly exploded in the sky behind them. Everyone was shocked and looked up. They saw two resplendent silver pillars of light that seemed to be solid, piercing through the sky like auroras, directly striking a mountain that was 100 meters wide. Rumble! Immediately afterwards, the ground shook even more violently. The two silver pillars of light pierced through the mountain from the bottom to the top. The enormous power caused the space to faintly distort. Rumble! The vast power was like a sudden clap of thunder. In the next second, rocks flew everywhere, dust rose, and a shocking wave of dust soared into the sky. In the blink of an eye, the mountain was blasted to the ground. The surging power set off fierce waves of air. The wind howled, and the sky darkened. What had happened? The few of them looked at each other in confusion. Yin Hanlu shook his head helplessly. Looks like there's no time to rest. We'll have to get busy again. On the mountain behind the military camp, looking at the mountain in front of them that had been instantly obliterated, Changqi and the soldiers of the Dragon Fang army were all dumbfounded. Not far in front of them were two cannons. The cannons were engraved with strange runes that were sparkling and flowing like ancient vine patterns. The soldiers standing next to the cannons were all dumbfounded. One of them said in a daze, "This is the first time I've seen such a powerful cannon. It looks like the day our misty wind dynasty conquers the world is coming. Too damn fierce. With these cannons, we can conquer any city." Listening to the conversation around him, Chu Hen, who was standing next to him, just smiled. Chang Kuei gulped. Just as he was about to step forward and say something, Yin Hanlu, Hong Lian, Ji Shu, and the others were already flying over. "What interesting things have you come up with this time?" Junior apprentice brother, Chu Hen. Yin Hanlu landed in front of everyone with a smile. Chu Hen pointed at the two siege cannons and said, "No, I just modified them." "Oh, cannon?" The others were slightly startled. Yin Hanlu then asked, "It seems that the energy turbulence just now wasn't caused by gunpowder." "It's indeed not gunpowder. The impact of gunpowder is limited. I've changed the cannonball I shot out with a spirit rank talisman." Chu Hen explained. "Spirit level talisman? What?" Everyone was a little uneasy again. There was no one present who did not know about talismans. They were special tools refined by inscriptionists that could explode in an instant and were mostly used to create chaos. The lowest level of talismans was the Spirit Fall Talisman. In the past, the first talisman Chu Hen came into contact with in Tensei Prefecture was this kind of low-level talisman. The higher-level ones were the Spirit Fire Talisman, Heavenly Thunder Talisman, Violent Ice Talisman, and so on. As for the Spirit-level talisman, as the name suggested, it was a tool refined by a spirit tattoo master. The power it contained was above that of a high-level talisman. Even a void-piercing realm expert didn't dare to underestimate the destructive power of a spirit-level talisman. It was no wonder that the power of merely two cannons was able to flatten a mountain. In fact, this had already surpassed the scope of cannons. It was more appropriate to call it a crystal cannon. But similarly, the method to refine a spirit-level talisman was also very complicated. Its complexity was far above that of a wind stab tool pattern. Moreover, the number of origin crystal stones required for the talisman was much higher. Therefore, after listening to Chu Hen's explanation, everyone was more or less speechless. After this, they were going to be extremely busy again. Chu Hen asked, "All of you ought to be able to refine spirit-level talismans, right?" Everyone nodded successively. "Do you need talismans of that attribute?" "I only know of ice attribute talismans," said a spirit tattoo master from the Thousand Crane sect. "I only know of lightning and fire attribute talismans as well. I haven't tried anything else," said Hong Lian. Anything is fine, Chu Hen replied. The more complicated the attribute, the more there are. After all, it was an extremely great impact that was produced in an instant. The more types of attributes there were, the more it would be able to catch the enemy off guard. General Chong, how many siege cannons are there in the barracks? Chu Hen looked at Chong. Young Master Chu, there are a total of 100. If it's not enough, then I can mobilize another 100, said Chong Ke respectfully. Compared to the first day, Chong Ke's attitude towards Chu Hen had absolutely taken a 180-degree turn. From the wind-piercing arrows, to the dragon strength pills, to the terrifying crystal cannons. Chong Ke was completely convinced by Chu Hen's methods. Fortunately, he hadn't met a general like Chu Hen when he led troops to war in the past. Otherwise, he wouldn't even be able to leave behind dregs. That's enough, I don't need that many. Chu Hen raised his hand and said to Yen Han Lu and the others, Senior Sister Yen, as for the number of spirit-level talismans, the more the better. Just let me know in advance if you need any materials. The others nodded in tacit understanding. Yen Han Lu blinked her eyes and said with a smile, Junior Apprentice Brother Chu Hen, this is the first time your Senior Apprentice Sister has helped someone with this or that. After this is done, how do you plan on thanking me? Chu Hen smiled. Don't worry, Senior Sister Yen. When the time comes, I'll definitely give you a reward that will definitely satisfy you. Oh, my standards are very high. I don't like things that are too ordinary. Haha, Senior Sister will know when the time comes. If I'm lying to you, you can do whatever you want with me. Then it's settled. All right, why haven't I seen Huashua these days? Ji Shu asked casually. Chu Hen sniffed lightly and smiled a little embarrassedly. She said that arranging the tool patterns was too tiring and that refining pills was her specialty. So I asked her to help me refine pills. Time passed day by day. The Dragon Teeth Army had almost completely sealed off all communication with the outside world. All kinds of preparations were in progress. The refining of the Dragon Strength pills, the making of spirit-level talismans, and the improvement of the crystal cannons. The strength of this ordinary army was increasing at the fastest speed possible. Even though everyone was silently dividing up their tasks to complete their tasks, they were still unable to do so. There was a huge question in everyone's heart. That was, could Chu Hen really take down Taishao City? It was undeniable that the wind thorn arrows combined with the dragon strength pills were indeed extremely lethal. The crystal cannons combined with spirit-level talismans could also pose a powerful threat to void-piercing realm experts. But don't forget, the Mu family of Taishao City was not an ordinary force. As a family second only to the first-rate sex, the biggest obstacle in front of Chu Hen was the unshakable earth profound realm experts other than the numerous experts. Even so, everyone tacitly kept their mouths shut and did not mention this matter. They only silently assisted. The autumn air was crisp and the wind was light. The gorgeous sunlight shone on the surface of the water, causing it to sparkle. As the breeze blew, the lush branches and leaves swayed, emitting a tinkling sound. Beneath the green child cauldron, Huashua leaned against the foot of the cauldron, biting a blade of grass at the corner of her mouth. She looked very relaxed. Slacking off again? At this moment, a gentle voice was heard. A young figure appeared in front of her, blocking a ray of sunlight. Without medicinal ingredients, even the cleverest housewife cannot cook without rice. Do you understand? Huashua pouted, with an expression that said, What can you do to me? Chu Hen squatted down and smiled. What medicinal ingredients do you lack? Everything. All right, I'll go to Ling City and buy it for you. Hearing that she was going to Ling City, Huashua's eyes immediately brightened. She hurriedly pulled on the corner of Chu Hen's clothes. Do you need someone to help you carry things? Chu Hen smiled. No need, I have a storage ring. Then do you need a follower? Think about it. Having a very cute little girl by your side is such a glorious thing. Huashua blinked and smiled sweetly. Looking at her, Chu Hen couldn't help but think of an innocent and adorable little face. Yao, that kind-hearted girl. I wonder how she's doing right now. Chu Hen immediately stood up and nodded slightly. Let's go. That's great. I haven't eaten tang hulu for a long time. When it was close to noon, Chu Hen and Yi Yao entered Ling City. After purchasing a batch of medicinal ingredients to refine the Dragon Power Pill, Chu Hen originally wanted to go back earlier. However, when he saw that Hua Shui was so lively and had so much fun, he did not disturb her mood. Ling City seemed to be livelier than usual today. The crowd was endless, bustling and exuding a vigorous vitality. Amazing! This is really amazing. Just at this moment, a loud shout came from the second floor of a restaurant and spread to the main street. Normally, Chu Hen would only respond with a smile to these busybodies talking about him and would not pay too much attention to them. However, just as he passed through the entrance of the restaurant, the last few words caused him to slightly pause his footsteps. Who's amazing? Why are you so excited? Who else could it be? The person I'm talking about is naturally the leader of the younger generation in our province, the head of the 4 young masters, young Master Yu, Song Yujie. Oh, what's going on? Has Song Yujie come out of seclusion? He came out a long time ago. Moreover, the first thing Song Yujie did after coming out was to bring his sword to the otherworldly spirit sect and point his sword at Shui Qi. What do you think happened? One move. With just one move, young Master Yu was defeated by Song Yujie.